There's something specifically you guys are here to listen to.
We like to participate.
Okay, I would move up.
We love having all here.
They're what we can hear.
Lindsay, can you guys hear us? Okay. It looks like this. So, this on. We can record.
Not kids. Oh, these are kids.
Oh, okay, I just. Ready for me to start recording?
Except Shelby, yeah.
Yeah, we're ready to start the recording.
All right, I'm gonna bring the Grand County School District Board of Education work session to order. It's Wednesday, April 9th, 2025 at 8:40. We are here at the district office and available via Zoom. All board members are present. Mike and Matt are also present. Okay, first on the agenda is high school schedule presentation. So Kari is here to present the new high school schedule for 25-26. Kari will talk about benefits of schedule and answer questions that the board may have. I added some documents to this that I found on the website. That's what those
Okay.
bottom
Yeah.
things are. But go ahead, Kari.
Do you want to start with the schedule or the presentation?
Can you pull them both up and I'll start with the presentation and then it's easier to look at the schedule in that way. Versus.
Can you give
on
me
that
access?
presentation.
I don't, who,
Or I'll just look up there.
yeah, I think it'd have to be Kari.
You can go to the next slide. So this is this proposed schedule, so can you go back to the other view, because the other view is just easier to look at. No, the proposed schedule view, yeah, that one. Okay, so this on the left-hand side is the current 2025 4-period day with instructional minutes. And then on the right-hand side or the middle to the right is the 5-period day with instructional minutes. And as you can see, we gained 21 instructional minutes with the 5-period day. That's not, there's an actually negative net effect of 13 minutes per period, or unless it's 4th hour where it's 15 minutes because 4th hour is 90 minutes instead of 88. But each class is still 75 minutes with a 32-minute lunch. So there is 10 minutes off of lunch, but actually it's 15 minutes because right now we have a 5-minute passing period with lunch. And so with all of those reductions and a 4-minute passing period instead of a 5-minute passing period, we have 355 instructional minutes in a day versus 375, sorry, versus 354. And then if you scroll down, what's on the bottom is just the Friday schedule. So there's an additional 26 instructional minutes within the day, moving to the 5-period schedule. And that doesn't include that you're also getting, the extra minutes with the 5th hour. And then if you scroll down a little bit more, right now, the students need 28 credits to graduate. Next year, they will need 28 credits to graduate, but this is still under review because some of the departments are still in the process of figuring out what they want their schedules to look like. So if you go back to
What's under review?
whether it's gonna be 28 credits or not.
Would it be less than that?
No,
So a teacher determines how many credits their classes were?
no. The teachers determine whether they wanna have year-round classes or 3 quarter classes or 2 quarter classes. And then from there, we can determine what the credit's gonna look like, because we've already determined that every class is gonna have a half a credit no matter what.
Okay.
But if they're doing math year round, that's 2 credits of math, right? If they're doing language arts year round, we may do 2 credits of comp or 2 credits of lit and 2 credits of lang, right? But they don't differentiate at the state. They just want you to have 1 credit of English 11. And so what does that look like for us?
Okay.
So those things are still in the process of being looked at and sort of put through this lens of what are we doing? If you go back to the presentation, you can see a clear picture. So the next slide is just the pretty purple and orange slide is just the same information, except that the 5x4 credit for 2026 is under review. The next slide is just, I looked it up and it is not common ever to publish a draft master schedule. It's like what everybody wants to see, and then they want to call us and tell us what they want their kid's schedule to look like. If we had the master schedule developed before the end of the school year, this will be the first time in Grand County history that I've been here since 2000 that the master schedule was developed before the teachers walked out the door of their contract time for the year before. Generally, we work on this in June, but we've been working on this all year because it's been my goal all year to have that master schedule so teachers know what they're teaching before they walk out the door. Because I think it's better practice for teachers. But it is not available, even in draft form, for public consumption today. So I just want you to know that. But the last sentence there, I'm just gonna scroll real quick.
Yeah.
You're going on. The last sentence there is that the 5-period day is best for students who want to excel as well as those who need extra support. Because it includes options for math, science, and English year round, as well as additional elective options without having to lose too many other options. So I'll just visualize that for you by showing you the next slide. So this is the current 4x4 schedule. And if somebody, how do I zoom out just a wee bit? Oh, go here. Nope.
It was on.
Go to fit.
Oh,
You can push present.
there we go. That's fine. So this is the 4x4 schedule, and so what this shows is if a person wanted to have an accelerated schedule, meaning math year round, language arts year round, science year round, this is what their schedule would look like. So they could have, right now, they could have math 1 and math 2, have your math year round, language arts 9, language arts 10, have language arts year round, earth science, and then biology. But there are also other credit requirements that we put into 9th grade, 10th grade, 11th grade, and 12th grade. Those for 9th grade are health, the digital studies requirement, 1 of the 3 PE credits that the 3 PE classes that they have to take, and 1 of the art classes the 3 art classes that they have to take. So this is what their current schedule setup would be on a really aggressive schedule. This also, minus the math 2, say somebody like a student who needed extra support failed math 1 this quarter 1, they would actually be taken out of math 1 quarter 2 and put back into math 1 quarter 3 and 4 because they needed that remediation. So this is part of the limitation of the 4-period schedule, but it also, again, is like that extra cut to the potential certificates or career and technical education classes, because if a student needed this level of remediation or wanted this level of acceleration, they couldn't fit anything else in, including band, including release time, including any of those things. So the next visual is the 5-period day. And so you can see that our plan at this point is to offer math year round. To do, but if a person also wanted language arts 9 and 10, they could do it again, or science and biology, that's having science year round. Have room for the health, the digital studies, the PE, and the art, then also have 4 additional periods where they could fit electives, whether that be career and technical education, a certificate, whatever it is they want to fit in there. If it's band, if it's release time, whatever it is, they actually have time for that within their schedule, but they can also fit all of the other classes and be accelerated or have that support if they need it. So that concludes the presentation of the 5-period day schedule. I don't know if the most important part is like what the hours will be or like kind of what your questions are. That's what I have.
I have questions about if you go up, back up to
The
slide
4x4?
3.
Yes, this one? Oh, 3, yes. Uh-huh.
Yeah, so right now, student needs 28 credits to graduate.
Correct.
Students earn 8 credits per year.
Mhm.
Every class and term is 0.5 of credit.
Yes,
Switching to a 5x4, we're still keeping it at 28 credits. So they can earn up to 10 credits per year.
correct.
That means by their senior year, if they were to take a full schedule, they would have potentially 40 credits.
Correct.
And they have taken 12, they could graduate junior year.
Correct, but they still could now, because we require 28 credits. Yes, you're right. If they took an accelerated path, didn't do any elective classes, didn't get any certificates, and just did an accelerated path, they could graduate their junior year.
I don't
But
think
they
it's
could now.
accelerated as long as, just if they follow I guess it would
It
be
is accelerated, because
It is.
you're doing language arts 10 in your
In your
freshman
But you
year.
could have done that your sophomore, you could also do it your sophomore year.
Yes.
It wouldn't be
You could
the
still do
accelerated-
it.
What would you do as a sophomore? You do language arts 11?
Well, and
I mean,
then,
I guess,
right, and then, so the cool part about it is if you did an accelerated plan, like you were a sophomore and you're taking language arts 11, then you could move on to AP Lit and AP Lang as then you'd have all of and then you could move on to the concurrent enrollment classes, your junior and
Yeah.
senior year. Like,
that's
just,
excellent.
I think that the old philosophy was, because kids can do it, they're going to. But with the robust concurrent enrollment program and the other robust advanced classes that we have, we're just finding that students aren't. Like,
They're not
they're not
graduating
graduating
early.
early.
correct. I mean, our numbers this year like don't pan out, right? We had
Okay.
3 kids graduate in December.
Because there's only 4 credits to technically that they're working, or there's not 12. Wait, let me do my math again, hold on. 10 credits, so 40 minus 28 is 12. 12, that's a year.
They
No,
can
that's only
earn-
one,
yeah.
a year and they're,
But they're just not doing that. What they're doing is going through their classes and then taking the like the concurrent enrollment classes. They're going for that certificate that they can through concurrent enrollment. That's what we're learning, is that like, we didn't have kids graduate early because they could. We had kids graduate early because they didn't see the relevance of continuing. And now we have kids who could graduate early, but they're not because they're enrolled in these concurrent enrollment or these advanced classes.
Because those kids are the ones that are probably gonna be headed to college and need all those AP classes, basically.
Exactly.
Correct.
Right, okay.
I'm not worried about the accelerated kids graduating early. I think a regular B kid that goes through the system could graduate early. And are they technically college bound? Maybe not. Like, that's who is gonna fall through the cracks, not the accelerated kids that are taking college classes, not the kids that need to retake, the kids that are in the middle and go, well, okay, I could potentially earn some money if I graduated,
Right.
in the fall. And that has
And that's
been a
exactly what
problem.
my daughter did. She had no reason to be in school. She will go to a trade tech, but she doesn't care about her, and we talked about it with
Yeah.
Derek. To stay in, so if you wanna go to college, you're gonna have to have this many credits, and she didn't want it, and.
And as a 17, 18-year-old person, that might be the plan. When you look, when you turn 25, 30, you might be going, oh man,
Well,
I
but-
should have,
It's
you
not
know.
for me to.
no,
address that.
no, it's not as a father, like, that's your own kid, but we need to, look at the best for making sure.
I guess how often would this happen? Do you, I mean, there will be kids then, so some kids we're gonna benefit because they can take them over, right? Like we have extra time to redo, we've got more time to finish our math requirements. If we fail,
Correct.
we can do it again, or get a better grade.
And these.
I'm just wondering if we need to,
I-
just to increase this 28.
So I
That
don't-
would be a solution, like,
Yeah, okay, I don't
Because we
disagree
have
with you. It's
done
still
30 in
under
the
review.
past.
Yeah, it's still under review. We haven't decided that this is exactly it. It's still under review.
well, I know, and that's
Still
why
creating the master
we're
schedule.
also giving the feedback. I mean, if you pull up graduation requirements from
You go back to the agenda and pull up.
there's that document, we have graduation requirements that have changed.
Correct.
Every year.
Year since 2020.
Yeah. Which is super confusing for
Uh-huh.
everyone.
And so the whole reason I'm not rushing into changing this is because something that's like not mentioned here, but it is an option, is that there's a 24 credit Utah State graduation, right?
Mhm.
That's not in our system because we just say you either get a Grand County School District diploma or Grand County High School diploma. However, what I'm looking into is the legality of that. Like, how can we say you only get this or this and we don't, and we're not offering the 24 credit Utah State diploma? So I don't want to rush into like, here's what we're doing. So let's just let the pendulum swing and change it now. We need to sit and look at this stuff. And part of it is, do we offer that 24? Do we legally have to offer that 24 credit Utah State diploma? Do we offer it? What does it look like? Do those kids get to walk for graduation? Because typically they haven't. Typically it's just been through Trish at adult ed. But now that we have this SCSC option, and also we have kids are with us and they're there for the 24 credits, but they're not there for the 28. They're not there, but we know that they're gonna graduate and they've been with us for the last 4 or 12 years. What do we do with them? And so I feel like all of these questions are wrapped up in this credit conversation. And so it's still under review based on what the schedule is also gonna look like next year.
Well, and I worry that because you're not, because you're saying that these classes are 0.5 credits, that you're diluting that credit, if that makes sense. So are there requirements for, that a class has to be so many minutes to be so many credits? Are we just willy-nilly like, why don't we just say that it's worth 0.75 or 1 credit? Like, what does that actually mean?
Yeah.
And so what speaks, so, because what you're saying is we're decreasing, a math, like if you go back to the presentation, the time, we're taking out that much of a day, say it's English, and we're taking out 13 minutes from a class,
Yes.
but it's worth the same amount of credit,
Yeah,
right?
that's a good question. How many minutes is worth of credit? I guess is.
So
There is no translation. We determine that. And so right now, math will be year round. And so they're losing 13 minutes per class. However, right now, this year, math is only one semester. Next year, it will be 2 semesters.
But you're adding 4 classes for 2 extra credits per year
Correct.
and not moving the bar for graduation.
This is true, but it's still under review. That right now, today, that's what we're doing, and we're reviewing it. So we're not ready to say graduation is gonna need 32 credits. What we need to do is unpack what that looks like, and there may need to be a credit translation. What we found in the past, when we take year-round classes and make them worth 0.25, 0.25, and then we take other not year-round classes and make them worth half a credit.
Well, that doesn't work either.
The translation is not appropriate. And so I've talked to 15 other principals and 15 other schools around the state and said, what do you do with your credit? And they said, best case scenario, and also Power Schools recommends this, best case scenario, you offer everything for the same amount of credit, whatever that looks like for you. And that's how you do it. Well, when you put that on paper and you look at all of those classes, because we have several classes that concurrent enrollment classes are actually still in trimesters. Because that's how they set the schedule and we don't have a choice. Then we have several classes that are on a quarter and several classes that are on a semester and some classes now that will be a year. You count everything as a quarter credit, as a quarter within a quarter and count everything for the same amount of credit. And we just decided on a half credit. So I understand that it seems like these translations might be weird. And every time the counselor gets a kid who transfers, they have to look at the transcript and translate it. And also every time we get a kid in that transfers in, we have to look at the credit and the way they do their credit at all the different schools around the state or around the country and translate it, right? Like we have one kid that came in like a freshman with 27 credits. It's like, how can you have 27 credits when you're a freshman? They just do their credits totally different at the school that they came from in Arizona.
Do we have to honor their 27
No,
credits?
no.
we.
I was gonna say they interpret.
Translation.
Okay.
Yeah.
Wow.
No.
Okay.
So it's like, there's a lot of stuff going on and we will, as we begin to as the master schedule begins to settle itself out, then we'll start to look at the number of credits and where we're at with it. But I feel like we also have to put it through the lens of what are we offering as far as diplomas? Right now, we have our Grand County High School one and our Grand County School District one, and we have to look at the state one and see what.
Well, isn't that true historically? Like, it's always been 24 credits, right? For the state of Utah. And yet, we've not necessarily honored that. So you're asking about the legality of it, but if that should have been asked, 25 years ago, right? Like,
And so we need to look at it.
As many, we could increase.
We can make
that-
it 50.
They could,
I
each
know.
quarter could be a credit, or
I
each
know.
quarter
I
could be.
understand that
0.2.
it's sort of just, I'm just saying that. So, okay, so they need 20, let's say they do need 24 credits according to the state of Utah.
Yeah.
We'll just make it so they're 20, takes them 3.5 years to get to 24 credits.
Not necessarily. The state of Utah diploma means they don't have a pathway, which is something that we require. The state of Utah diploma means that they would just have the core classes that the state says they need to have and the core skill set in order to graduate. So there's like no extras. And right now, I think he graduates with 24 credits, we don't have them walk through the Jeep, right? That's just what we've done for the last however many years. And so as we look at credit and we start to unpack that, these are the kind of things, the questions that come up. And so we just need to ask them,
Well, I think if also with if the people on this board are confused, I hesitate to put Derek in that position of like talking to 400 other parents, like trying to decipher. Every conversation is gonna be different, and it is, that's what the counselor's job is, but I can't even, like, I'm saying, well, why is a class that credit? Why are my kids on different graduation credit pathways? Not pathways, that's the wrong word, because we use
Yeah,
pathways.
right.
But like, they're gonna have, it's just very confusing as a parent, and I don't need a class schedule, however, I think as students, yesterday, my kid came home with a paper and goes, okay, what classes am I taking? They want this, I need to tell them tomorrow, and I'm just like, well, no, we don't even know what what the schedule is. So it's just it's a lot of moving parts, and I'm not sure we're putting the priorities of the parts aren't moving in the sequential way. Am I saying, do you understand what I'm saying?
If I may also interject, it's not uncommon in a state to have these different pathways. So right now we have 2 with the possibility of 3. In some other states I've worked in, there is like there's a basic plan, which is the bare minimum, and then there's an advanced, and then there's a higher level for, kids are going to college. And so, that conversation is between the parents and the counselor and the kid. And sometimes that's happening in 8th grade, and what does a kid know in 8th grade about what they're going to do? And so I think that adds to the confusion is that, there's choices, and what is it that a child wants to do after school? So what are they going to take? So I think working through that is also something that needs to happen between the school and the kids and the parents. What is it you want to do?
But I think as a community, we have expectations that if they do get a diploma and that they have taken these particular classes and that they're going to be a successful member in our community. And what does that mean? That does not mean to me diluting credits to make sure that they, that they hit an arbitrary graduation. It has to be, you can't earn 10 credits a year and only expect, and then have 24, or 28, or, moving that graduation number has to be, if we're expecting a full caseload, at least till their junior year, that graduation requirement, credit requirement has to be set at a,
Well, if I may, the discussion here is between 4 and 5
Yeah.
classes a
Right,
day.
okay,
And we all understand we wanna meet a certain criteria, whether it's a pathway or whatever. Derek and whomever has to adjust for that as you change the system.
correct.
But in your opinion, is it gonna dilute? Is it gonna cause the kid not to get as much education going 5 hours? Or is it gonna give them more versatility in their studies to reach the goals that they wanna reach? You know, I mean,
Right.
we're debating here 4 and 5 hours. We're not,
Right,
the credits you need to extrapolate and
right.
figure
it's
out.
under review.
Everybody needs to figure that out so that everybody's satisfied that it didn't go down and hopefully goes up. I mean, as far as the, you know, what you're teaching them. But, you know, I guess where I'm at is, I don't know the difference between 4 and 5 hours. I haven't sat down and done the study,
Uh-huh,
but I have to trust that Kari and her staff and other people involved in this have spent eons of hours, and that they will come up with a good, and I don't disagree that we need to make sure that they get enough credits and they don't just get through it, you know, middle of their junior year.
right.
But anyway, so the debate to me is 4 and 5 hours. Does it give it more versatility, and can you keep the teaching at the level that it is now or better?
When you look at the schedule, it definitely opens up more versatility.
I don't think there is, Dave, I don't think the debate is 4 or 5. I think it's having that discussion of like, what are the consequences? Are you know, like, as a community member, what are graduation requirements, which is, you know, gonna be up for board. How many credits required to me as a board decision. So it's not, we're not debating 4 or 5. How we discussed whether to transition from 5 this year and then block next year. Yeah, you know, that to me is we're throwing another, you know, hurdle into the whole transition of like, okay, the freshmen starting next year. Well, I mean, it just keeps that, every year has a different pathway to graduation requirements, again.
What
instead
I'm
of
saying
just,
is,
you know.
we have a presentation on 4 and 5 hours. That's what the presentation is.
Well, that's not,
It was,
that's not.
it was prefaced with, they're still looking at the.
But that was not, there were, on the agenda, that is not, that might have been asked, the question was basically, that was math going to be provided year round? Because that was what I was hearing from other, from
So,
people.
Let me just
from
make a
high
slight
school, so.
explanation right now. Right now, if you take AP math, that is offered year round. So you get a half a credit per term for AP math. That still counts as 2 credits when you graduate.
Next year?
No, right now, today. That still counts as 2 credits as 2 whole AP math credits when you graduate. You get 2 whole credits. Right now, if you take a concurrent enrollment class, which sometimes is just 1 semester, you get 1 whole credit for concurrent enrollment, whether it's a semester or not, because that's just how the credit translations work. And so right now, all of those things are already happening within the schedule and you don't even know as a community member, right? And so the reason I'm saying it's under review is because first we have to solidify what we're doing and when, and then we will review what happens. So currently AP Lit and AP Lang are 3/4, so they get 1.5 credits for AP Lit and AP Lang. That doesn't mean that they graduate like any further or that they get extra credit in English because they have a credit to have AP Lit and AP Lang. Because that's 3 credits total. That doesn't mean they didn't have to take English 9, 10, 11, and 12 as well. The AP class does replace the English 12, right? But still, they graduate with 5.5 credits of English instead of the 5 that they need. These things are already happening within the schedule. And we don't have kids skipping out early because they are, you know, even my own son, who's not a super accelerated student, is graduating with like 34 credits. Because that's just what's happening, and kids are choosing to stay in school. We require 9th and 10th graders to have a full schedule, which is why we're trying to build it with that in mind. And then 11th and 12th graders are allowed to have a little bit of flexibility in their schedule, because sometimes you take a college class and that overlaps 2 periods. So you can't have that like second hour class because your first hour class was a college class. Going to the 5-hour day also helps us align a little bit better with the college schedule, because college classes are only actually 1 hour. So right now, if a person needed a second hour class, they had a first hour college class, they might be able to get that second hour class because it's the only class period we offer that within the 5-period day schedule. It's just gonna see how it all shakes out. But all of these things are already happening within the schedule, and you don't even see it like on, the basis of where you're coming from, right? And so part of me goes, some of these things, we need some time to work out, but we're working them out. And so whether or not I'm gonna come back to the board in June and say, we now need 32 credits again, or not, is still up in the air. It's still under review.
I have a quick question for you. So with the state of Utah certificate, and you said that the kids don't walk if they're going that path, is there any does the state require them to be able to walk?
I'm investigating this now.
Yeah, I'm
because,
just
I mean,
curious
where's
about
the
that.
Utah State diploma?
Yeah,
We have our diploma and the district diploma, but never seen the Utah State diploma.
okay,
So I'm investigating that now.
okay.
Yeah, the granting of a diploma is legal. The walking of a stage is a district.
Okay, gotcha. That's what I need to know.
Is SCSC kids, are they graduating with just 24 credit in Utah? Or are they graduating?
Depends on
just
where they go.
wherever they are?
Exactly.
Okay.
And as far as kids falling through the crack, I mean, I think our ultimate goal at the end of the day is to get them to that graduation point. Yes, we want them to be able to complete a certain skill set. Yes, like there's all these things we want for them. But we also want to be able to get them to that point where they graduate. And so falling through the crack is relative to, is the end goal graduation? Is the end goal to ensure that they've jumped through all of our hoops and made all of our little things happen? And so that's where you get like, which cracks are you talking about? And I think we all think the end goal for these kids, ultimately, when you look at the social determinants of health, a high school diploma is like one of those things, like that positive place of education is one of those things that helps a person accelerate into their future. It's a big thing. Completing high school is a big thing. When I interviewed the kids, when I did work-based learning, and I said, what's your greatest accomplishment so far? They would all go, I mean, every kid, advanced kids, like not advanced kids, right? And then they'd go, I think it's gonna be graduation. And you'd be like, okay, because it is, regardless of where they're at, whether they're at 24 or 28 or 15 or 32, they realize in their head that it's their greatest accomplishment so far in their lives, regardless of who they are. And so I think that, those are the kind of things that we need to look at and weigh, and we want to get them to that place of graduation, but we also want to know, when you graduate, Dave, you can formulate a sentence and create an email and then talk to people when you see them in public. All of those things. And so agreed that it's the whole big picture. At this point, when I look at the benefits of the 5-period day, I think that this really allows for a better structure for all of our kids all around. Do we need to look at the credit acquisition and what that looks like? Yes, and we are.
And so my question is, the 5-hour day, more versatility, able to do different things, is it gonna lower our test scores? Because at the end of the day, we want our kids to be educated. I mean, well, I guess what I'm saying is that, what are the positives and negatives of this situation?
Yeah.
Because, I mean, it's.
The way I see it, the teachers are able to fit more applied classes, like more different types of applied classes, even with math year round. We have more advanced options for math, and those kids are able to actually get to them by their junior year, so that when they're taking the ACT, they actually have had exposure to all these other things already, versus like, nope, you have freshman year math 1, sophomore year math 2, and then junior year math 3. So you're like 3/4 of the way through math 3 and you're taking the ACT.
Right.
Now they can be through math 3 and into pre-calc or even calculus with the new, if they were aggressive and advanced, And that's when they take the ACT, not when they're in the middle of math 3. You know, so do I anticipate it will lower test scores? Absolutely not. In fact, I anticipate that it should have the opposite effect because the kids get more exposure to more content in a faster, like in a faster paced time. Not all of them will.
No,
Some kids will need that remediation or that remediation time, but it buys us the freedom to have a little bit more room in the schedule for both advance and remediation.
I want to clarify, I don't think we're debating 4 hours, 5 hours, that was set, Kari said it was set, you know, that's set, it's more of
What's
asking.
gonna happen with credit?
What's happening? Where are we at? What's going on here? You know, when we get questions from teachers, from community members, and I can't answer them,
Yeah.
then, you know, it doesn't matter. But I do not, we are not debating whether we're staying at 4 or 5. You're down a road of 5. That, it's just, how does that look? And so that I can answer questions.
well, it sounds like it's under review. I mean, I don't, if somebody asked me, I'd say I'd have to find that out.
Yeah.
And it may or may not be an answer today, it may be next week, it may be next month, maybe in June. But, and I'm not so acquainted with all of this as other people on this board. And I haven't had those people come to me with those kinds of questions, but, you know, it sounds like to me for today's conversation, Kari has told us that they're working those details out. Those concerns that you have, Melissa, are being reviewed, and I suggest that if we need to, then have a visit and see where it's going.
Well, I think that
You
was
know
what
more
this
than
was.
I ever.
I think this is what this is like, where are we at, what's going on, because I'm getting questions about
Well,
the schedule, so I would rather have it here than have a one-on-one with you and you guys not hear it, right?
Right.
So that to me
Yeah,
is the conversation of how do we disseminate the information of like, okay, you know, I have because you know, every conversation is gonna be my kid, blah, 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 blah,
Yeah,
right? And if
yeah.
I can go, well, you know, this is how it is generally, but go talk to Derek, go talk to
Yeah.
Kari about where your
And
kid
not to
is.
be argumentative, but I haven't found out any more about any of this through the last 45 minutes of talk than
I
when
have.
Kari said,
I thought.
I know you may have.
I thought.
Kari said that it's under review. I expect a report back saying how we're gonna
This is what-
disseminate the credits and figure out graduation.
Yeah.
That's what and everything you've said I haven't heard a negative yet about the process and what's gonna happen.
Yeah.
But people are already asking though, that's the problem, like, and so I was.
Well, it's good to
If,
be.
if they're asking, then, you know, that's. We gotta.
Well, you know, my.
Not wait till August 1st.
I really like, thank you very much. I think this has helped me tremendously. I don't have kids in high school, you know, I have nephews and niece that just recently graduated, but I found this very informative, so thank you.
Do you anticipate, I guess, when do you anticipate having the graduation requirements set? Is that the June meeting or,
Yeah,
okay,
yeah, we'll know by June. I mean, ideally, I have the master schedule done before the teachers walk out the door on May 23rd. This will be the first year in my experience in Grand Canyon history that we have this done. And so like, we're talking about, it's great that we're talking about it in April, but these are actually usually summer conversations. We don't usually have these conversations this early in the year.
I think it's
is,
great though.
by master schedule, do you mean for the teachers, what their schedule is, or like a sample student?
No, for the teachers.
Okay.
Yeah, for
Yeah.
what their
Oh,
schedule
yeah,
is.
then the kids.
We know the offerings right now, which is why I don't know which kid, but why your kid brought home that sheet. Because part of the problem is right now, we don't have a middle school counselor, so Derek's
Right.
responsible for taking care of all of the students from those 8th graders who are coming up, 9th, 10th, 11th, and 12th graders. I mean, 9, 10, 11 plus 8. Right, so normally there would be at least every other year an individual meeting with the parent and the student. This year, it's been really hard to complete that without a middle school counselor.
Yeah.
And so this is why some of the processes feel a little bit nebulous, like parents would get some information and like a core group of parents would have that information. Right now, it's sort of like, we know what the offerings are, this is why the teachers build that. And so then he's handing out these sheets saying, choose your courses, because now what happens is, for core classes, we know approximately everybody needs it, right? But for those elective classes, we have to see how many sections we need of them in order to build the master's grade. But what the master schedule is what the teachers are on.
Yeah, okay. And does RDP the advisory,
Yes,
what does it stand for?
Red Devil Pride. So it's Red Devil Pride tonight.
Haven't heard DP did.
I don't know.
You sure?
Yeah.
Okay,
One other thing that, and I know that Kari's working really hard to get that master schedule out before the teachers go home. We both know that's really important. Also, from my understanding is that students in the past, their schedules have been late. And they're gonna work really hard, to make sure that kids get the schedules the week before. So we're talking about that. So those are two of our aspirational goals going in, because we know that those are very important, so.
I'd just like to say, I appreciate all the work you guys have done.
Yeah,
And I
Yeah, I
know
think
it's
it's
been a lot, on
outstanding.
top of just trying to keep the school.
right.
a lot of thought.
I think it's great that you're this early getting on it. I really think that's excellent, so.
I think we're in good shape. There are still some questions and we're aware, yeah. Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Carly.
Yes.
Okay, open versus closed campus lunch at the high school. So I forwarded, some emails to everybody that I've been getting. There might have been some that Mike has been getting.
So I forwarded a couple to
Huh?
I forwarded a few to
When?
They're even coming to my husband.
Can I
I
ask a
forwarded one this morning.
Oh, okay, this morning. I've received one so far. That was last night and I responded. It was parent.
And I
Yeah,
think they,
most are kids that I was
Right.
getting.
Oh, here we go.
Can I ask a question about this? I mean, I have my own personal opinion, but I definitely want to hear all this. What's been the negative? Can I find out what's the negative part of letting the kids go to lunch outside of campus,
Yeah.
especially the young ones? Like, I think should be a privilege for the older kids, absolutely. And we see a lot of younger kids wanting to be able to have, but what are the negative issues that people have come across for having an open lunch?
So I kind of brought this up to the high school and to the board. And it's, it's a discussion item. I think there's two or three main issues. Let me just to say right up front, my number one main issue is the safety of our students, okay? Accidents, particularly auto accidents, are the number one cause of fatalities among teenagers. Last year, I was teaching high school and I had a student in my class die in an auto accident on the way to school. We have a very busy community with a lot of people in it. I think that taking a really hard look at this before there is an accident at lunchtime, to make sure that this is worth the risk that students have to go out and eat and come back. I think we really need to take a look at. Freshmen don't have driver's licenses, so when they leave campus, what do? They do what I did in high school. We all pile into a car. We got about 6 people in a single seat truck driving around. And it just puts them at risk. And I don't want to go to any funerals.
Are 16-year-olds allowed to have passengers in their vehicles?
Well, probably.
After 6 months.
Yes.
Yeah.
Allowed in what they do is two different
Right,
things.
right.
Yeah, well, I
right,
mean,
yeah.
I'm just curious about.
I know, having my daughter a
so-
few times. Do not.
Yeah, so we start with the safety thing right there. Also attendance and tardies are issues. If we're going to become instruction driven and work really hard, then we have to take a hard look is open campus, closed campus, which is instructionally more sound. The arguments can be made either way. I think the other is that at least 40%, I think probably closer to 50% of our students are on free and reduced lunch or economically disadvantaged. You can't eat off a campus for less than $15 or more a person. And if you're walking, you're pretty limited in where you go. We're working really hard to get our cafeteria up and running, so students have a lunch option there. The comments on parents wanting their kids to come home for lunch, either just because or because of dietary reasons, we can work around that. You know, if you want your kid to come home for lunch, let them go home for lunch. Those are the kids that are probably doing, you know, they've got a lot of parental support. I'm not too worried academically. There are probably not a lot of tardies on those kids. And then if a kid is gluten-free and they're concerned about it, let them go home. Those are not the kids I'm worried about. I just don't want an accident on Main Street with my kids in a car, because they're hurrying to McDonald's and back.
And now the lunch is only 30 minutes. That's another piece of this.
We're
There's
shortening.
barely any time for them
Yeah.
to leave to go to McDonald's.
Well, I mean, I've been doing this for 25 years. When I first started, we had a 25-minute lunch, and that was the first year that we went to an open campus. I think like it was around the time of maybe Libby, right? And the kids came and made a presentation to the board. And then the next year they did an open campus. We had a 25-minute lunch.
How'd they do?
Dude, he did, you know, like I'm looking at the tardies and I'm going, it's always the same kid, right? Like it's
Whether it's.
Friday, right now, lunch is 40 minutes during the week and 32 minutes on Friday. My attendance on Friday and my tardies on Friday are no different than every other day of the week, even though we already have a disparity of 40 versus, or 47 versus 32 on Friday.
How difficult would it be to, as a possibility, to enforce something along the line of, you know, 2 tardies and then you lose that privilege?
Well, so this is the sort of the crux of the argument, is it a carrot or a stick, right? Like,
Yeah, I mean, it shouldn't.
and, you know, my sort of like devil's advocate thing is there a different liability if we say we're an open campus, but then I can use that privilege as a consequence versus we're a closed campus, but I can use that open campus option as a privilege, right? And
What would the privilege be, who would it be rewarded to? Not academic privilege.
well, we would have to figure it out. I think the bigger picture is neither of those questions. The bigger picture is, look at the size of the campus, look at the campus itself. Like literally, I can remember even in 2001, when we first started this, the process was really wonky. Kids would come in with a little piece of paper, because I taught class right before lunch, and they'd be like, here's my mom's name, you know, and it'd be like dirty, and like, what date was this written? You know, it was just, it wasn't a good process, right? So I think, you know, I get it that we're having this conversation. I think a lot of people are really freaked out by it because we've been doing it so long as an open campus. I do think logistically, when you look at our campus, how many people would we need in order to ensure that every freshman, you know, and so I remember at one point, we put this gate across the student parking lot and closed the gate as soon as kids got there in the morning, which was silly because it's actually the exit gate, but we did. And then kids would drive on the sidewalk or the dirt, or they like actually moved back the fence so they could get around it. And so, you know, what kind of campus security would we need, regardless of what the system is? Like if we have their cards and we say, you have to give me your card and you're a junior or a senior. I think the bigger picture is just the logistics of containing the, you know, the freshmen and sophomores, say if we did a leveled up, you know.
Yeah.
And I think that's where, I don't know if the teachers wrote or the students wrote. I know who talks to me and who talked to Mike. And a lot of it was the teachers who haven't been around, they don't know, they're just like, what's this conversation, right? But those who have been around are like, do you remember when kids would like army crawl under fences just to get away from you? And you'd be like, who's that kid, you know? Are they a freshman or a sophomore, you know? And so I just think our campus at this point is not necessarily conducive to this, but if this is what we have to do, then we'll try and figure out what the conductivity of that looks like. Understanding that this is like one other thing, and I still go back to that question mark is, if I now give you permission as your carrot, because you did really good on something, so now one of our things is we let them go off campus and something happens. Is there additional liability versus just saying we are an open campus, therefore during that time, it's release time, just like release time,
Yeah.
It just seems to me, that that the idea of the reward of, okay, once you're a junior and a senior, I mean, if there's a way to manage all of that, it's such a great privilege only.
right?
And then tardies, whatever, causing mischief, then it's taken away. And then you definitely have the freshmen and sophomores that need to go home for whatever reason. That's a special, I mean, I don't know.
I do want that question answered that she
Yeah.
just.
So that's,
Yeah.
that's a question for Risk, but, and I'm just gonna give my 2 cents, cause I can't hold back. This might be the right decision to close campus, and I'm not gonna, I'm not a specialist, I can't argue closed, open, as far as what's best for the school. It may be the right decision to close campus, but the board really, I would just ask you to look at making that decision strategically. So if we're sitting in this room today and we decide that it's the best thing to close campus, when and how do we implement that is the question that the board really needs to give direction on. If we try to, I'm just worried that if we try to implement it without having a strategic plan in doing so, it's just gonna create chaos and maybe cause more problems. So if the board wants to do this, then I would ask for the direction of, hey, we're going to do this. Superintendent Kari, develop a strategic plan, answering the risk questions, answering the personnel that we need to have, how we're gonna do it, what that looks like. Maybe even, solicit public comment on that plan and go from there, but just a knee-jerk reaction of, yes, this is the best thing, so we're gonna do it right now, could create more problems. It may be the best thing, but let's look at how we do it.
So again, this is a work session. This was on the agenda to give a direction of just like, hey, are we warm? Do we want to look at closing campus? It wasn't, hey, we're closing campus today. This was like, do we want to visit this idea? Do we want to task the admin to look at what this would take? That's what this discussion is, not whether we are doing it or not doing it. I think it would be also, posing these questions of risk questions, why, I think even, why this is becoming an issue, but,
I do worry about that lunch schedule, if it's shortened and this, if we close and we have this many kids trying to get through I'm guessing it would all be organized, but as a piece of looking at this, obviously that will be looked into as well.
And I don't have a dog in this fight. I mean, I'm either way. I can understand both sides of this story. The problem I see is we've opened the door. We've talked about it in this meeting. It's public. People maybe didn't come here, but at least they're gonna see it on the agenda. So now I don't see how we cannot direct administration to come up with something. We're not going to. I mean, we can debate till we're blue in the face on the pluses and minuses of it as a board. But until this is my biggest concern, logistics. You've got several different ways of escaping, period.
Yeah.
In 1971, we had an open campus, everybody went to the junior high to see their girlfriend. And then you didn't come back until late. It was always a problem.
But they're not allowed on the junior high campus.
I know, but back in the day, but what I guess I'm saying is now we've talked about it, we need to at least,
have a feasibility study.
something done.
I think that's
To,
great.
and not to put in more burden on administration, but, and figure out the logistics. That's what I understand the safety issue.
And we don't have
Well,
to
and-
decide this
and the-
now.
no, you
It could be
don't.
over the
But
summer or
what
whatever.
the board can also just give the directions, we don't have the appetite for this right now. And so if that's the general feeling, then that's perfectly fine. I felt compelled to bring it up because of the safety of the kids. I've been to funerals and I don't wanna go to any more. But there's lots of schools with open campuses, there's schools with closed campuses. I went to a school with a closed campus. We snuck off at lunchtime and went and drank beer and came back to campus.
We wouldn't.
All schools, no schools are.
Yeah,
immune to
yeah,
that,
it
yes.
happens, but I've been a principal at a closed campus and my kids got Uber to go get lunch.
Yeah.
That's what they did. I know we don't have Uber here, but.
We have Uber Eats, kids who order Uber Eats to the school all the time.
Well, they
Right,
can still
they
do that with a
say-
closed campus.
Yeah,
Yeah. we-
Yeah.
Yes, you can, they do.
Can we deliver it to the press?
as long as they bring something to the.
Why not?
Jenna,
I guess.
Not as often.
okay, Jenna, yeah.
Um,
I think, here's my proposal. We have a closed park. You park in the morning, we put the gate. It's an open campus if you're biking or you're walking. We live in a small town. It sort of addresses, the kids still have freedom. But the liability issue, they're not driving their car off campus. I've seen,
Specific classes that actually allow them to go off campus, like we have
yeah, the
agreements. with-
CTE.
Oh, yeah.
College
They're already
classes.
there.
Some of the college classes are offered up at campus,
Mhm.
some of the, but a lot of the CD classes, and they're offered every single hour of the day, the internship class. I mean, it's specifically set up, it's been approved by the board, the kids get. to come and-
Right, but I mean, the lunch, okay.
So one
the
of
lunch-
my issues with that.
No one
though-
drives off. I mean, I've seen a kid drive across 400 East to his, some house, right across on 400 East in his car. I couldn't believe that.
But if they
just-
are.
But I think that one of the issues, not just safety, attendance tardy, but also healthy, that's the problem. Is so if they're walking, their options are City Market, McDonald's,
Donuts.
Canyon Pizza. I mean,
Donuts and chocolate milk.
Donuts. I see.
so
them
that,
all the
that's,
time.
So they ride a bike. They choose to ride a bike if they want to go off campus. Or we.
I don't know, I think we could look at I think we should investigate all of these
Yes.
options.
Yes.
That's what I think, is we should give the administration, and also increasing the capacity of the lunchroom, right? Making sure that we're
We
actually
have to have our
offering,
ducks in a
we
row.
gotta have all of our ducks in a row. So,
Can we talk about it this summer instead of putting it off a year? You know, can we do that?
Absolutely.
Are you guys, can we talk about it this summer?
what's that?
Can we
Can we put
go
that
back
under
into
plate?
this in the summer?
I think there's
Or is that
just a
just-
minute, PCSD.
Yeah,
I'll do whatever.
Okay, I understand. I do. I'm just making a point.
Thank you.
you got it. That's all we wanted is, direction and, you know.
I think
our final decision.
we wanna see what that looks like.
Mhm.
That is, I think that.
Consider it done.
Okay.
Casey?
I just wanted to go back to what Jenna said, student body was supposed to be here, but I was the only one that did not, so.
Student government.
The only one that
Yeah.
was class. How we gonna deal with that?
Promoted.
Back to what Jenna said is, I think we can all agree that Canyons, I love going to Canyon, I ate there a lot as a freshman. But it's one of the easiest places to walk, it's that and it's Gilberto's, and between those two, and most of the time. You didn't have your food, especially changing it to 30 minutes, so if we're all walking over there, everyone's getting there at the same time. You're not gonna get your food. There's a lot of times that we ended up leaving and not getting our food, but how many kids are gonna sit there and pay $15 every meal? If they're not
not
gonna get it, and then you have kids going hungry at lunch if you're allowed to just walk.
And it's short.
So maybe, can I add to, so maybe by decreasing lunch time, we're actually promoting
Closed
a
campus.
closed campus situation.
We are, yeah. solving that.
But that is gonna be on Sarah to make sure that food is available, because I think that's what, to me, for my kids, it's
Yeah.
hard, it's like, on certain days, when there's government, they run out, because all of a sudden, there's 30 more people that we were, and didn't anticipate, and so trying to figure out also that situation of like, how do we accommodate 30 minutes, and yeah, and so to me, that's part of the feasibility.
And you're absolutely right. The students are gonna be more upset with the new schedule and how lunch is
Yeah.
only 32 minutes.
Yeah,
And then if it's like, it's taken away, it's like, okay, but 32 minutes, but I sit there in lunch duty every day and go. Kids eat real quick and then they're sitting there on their phones, especially the kids who hang out. And so, it's like, that's not effective instructional time, but I get it that the opposite effect. But like I said, right now, we have an experiment that's playing itself out every single week. Every Friday, lunch is actually 10 minutes shorter. It's only 35 minutes.
I've never had a problem making it
Yeah.
back on time, and I go to lunch every Friday.
There you go. So it is.
Do you drive?
Yeah.
And you go to local places or do you go home?
I usually go to local places, or like, I'm busy after school, and by the time my school's closed. I've gotta run an IFA store, I have animals that need fed, I've got stuff that needs to be done. And so I use my lunch hour, like last week I ran to the bank and had to go get money, cause that's the only time I have open. So a lot of kids use, I think. Those who need it, use it very wisely, like I ran to IFA store last week, picked up feed, cause I was out,
Wow, your day is more stressful than mine.
How often do you have someone else in your car?
Usually it's only one. And
One other
this is just
person?
one other person.
So it's two?
Two
Yeah.
people.
And you're probably not targeting very often, if at all.
No, we're always
No,
back.
okay, yeah, so how do you respond to the safety concern that accidents are the number one cause of fatalities of teenagers?
I have a problem with that because I lost a classmate in 5th grade because of that. But at the same time, we drive to school every morning. We're still gonna be driving home. We're driving home on prom night. We're driving home from school dances. We have kids that go to Grand Junction and come home. So I feel like just not letting us drive for 30 minutes a day isn't really solving a problem. And it's still gonna happen before school, after school, weekends. Like you're still gonna have the partying, you're still gonna have all that. That's still gonna happen.
But in a lunchtime though, you have a much more compressed time, so now
You're in a hurry, you mean.
feeling much more hurried, and piling into cars. So now you have a much more distracted driver than you would at any other time. And then for prom and graduation, we try to provide activities afterwards to prevent kids from driving too, so.
They're not on a time.
But I feel the
restriction.
kids that are still gonna pile 6 kids into a vehicle are the same kids that aren't gonna care and are still gonna go out partying on the weekends and drinking and aren't gonna show up to any of your safe activities. So I feel like it's just the same kids that you're helping both ways and you're not really gonna be able to do anything for them, because at the same time, we are high schoolers. It's a fact of life. You've gotta learn. You get pulled over once, and I bet you don't drive with 6 kids again. Well, I can agree that I got in trouble driving with a friend once.
I
and
wasn't
did
such a
not-
quick learner, yeah, I wasn't such a quick learner.
Yeah.
Just another perspective, a little bit of thought. There's a Supreme Court ruling on free speech that gives guidelines. They don't really draw a hard line in the sand, but they give guidelines on parentis locus and when the school or school district is responsible to manage and take care of issues and when they're not. And there is some, I don't want to say danger, but or risk, but problematic if we start trying to govern students' time outside of the scope of the district. If you start trying to regulate that, because it leads to where it blurs where that responsibility ends. So the case I'm talking about is a cheerleader posting things online and whether that speech can be regulated or that behavior. And giving that guidance, I would just caution the board to not overextend what we need to govern.
But lunchtime, you're not saying overextend, lunchtime is not overextending it.
What I'm saying is we're not gonna be able to control how students drive when they're not on campus. Whether that's coming to school or leaving school or going, from place A to place B, what they're doing at lunch. It's just difficult to.
Well, we can't govern what they're gonna do, but. I mean, obviously, they're gonna, but they are sort of our responsibility they're not our responsibility before school. And they're not necessarily our responsibility after school unless they're in sports, right? But during the school day, they kind of are our responsibility.
And during lunch, that's a
Yeah.
very.
I mean,
Well,
it's
it's
a gray area, I
it's
agree.
definitely a gray
And I
area.
do think that the problem is we've got kids that do leave school for CTE and for internships, they come,
And
but.
for release time, and then during internship,
What's
they are
release time?
responsibility.
Is that for intern?
Seminary,
Oh,
but during seminary, they're not our responsibility, that is just release time.
Are they our responsibility when they go to drive to their internship?
Yeah, they are our
Because they're-
responsibility, the entire internship
Yeah.
program is covered.
This is.
So the
So,
parents have
right.
to give permission for the
Right.
kids to drive.
Yeah,
If they get hurt on the job, it's under our workman's comp, yeah. The work-based learning program, the parents sign
Sure,
release forms
exactly.
saying, yeah, I'm gonna let my kid drive, they can drive my
Right.
car, this is what they do, right? When they go over to the seminary, if they drive there, which is ridiculous. if they-
But they.
They're- it's
I
release time.
think part of what your car.
I drive. But it's considered release time, therefore not ours.
and because their parents have signed that waiver, and that would be the
Correct.
same, like, if we wanted parents to sign a waiver that their kid can leave school for
For
lunch,
lunch.
which if we were gonna do this, I think, and allow privileging, whether it's, or just juniors and seniors get to leave, or whatever it is,
Yeah.
parents need to say, I agree.
Yeah.
But I still think we should look at it. I still think we should investigate it. I think the
Yeah.
admin should look at all aspects and.
In a perfect world, I would like to see it. And I would contend that probably the tardiness and the problems that go on are much with the kids that don't have cars. They're walking into City Market cringes because they're overwhelmed with tourists, they're overwhelmed, I mean, there are just
Yeah,
people
it
here.
isn't.
And they can't control what, there's more shrinkage during lunch
Yeah.
hour
And I think that's part of it is,
than any other time of the day.
like freshman year, we always had to put our backpacks, because we're high schoolers, there was a theft issue at City Market that was happening.
Mhm.
And so I feel like there's always that horde that goes to City Market, all your freshmen, all your sophomores who can't drive. But you've also got, if you were like close to campus and only make it walking or something, all those kids that drive, which is like, there's like 100 kids. And the parking lots for drive, that's like 100 more kids at City Market that you're adding to the problem.
Well, I think if you close it for everything,
Right.
not just for driving. I mean, you either close it or you don't,
agree.
one way or the other.
I got a bike, I got a car.
Yeah, okay. It is.
Okay,
So we would like
We're
a
kicking the can down the road.
feasibility
Car,
study. We're not gonna work through we're not working through the details,
Right.
but,
Got it.
we got all the,
You know our concern.
the
You got
concerns.
it.
Yeah.
Thank you for that.
We'll just keep forwarding, if we get more, public comment, we'll just keep forwarding it to you, Sarah.
Yeah, I do have a couple of concerns about the 30-minute lunch.
Okay.
They are required from the time they sit down and start eating to the time they get up to have 25 minutes. So if we're increasing our numbers, not only do I have to increase my staff by at least 3 people in a very short amount of time, we have to get them through the line and sat down for 25 minutes of eating.
This sounds
So
like
that
a
would be part of.
problem that Kari, even if we're not, even if this is a not closed or an open, we gotta make sure, because I feel like a 30-minute lunchtime, you are gonna increase kids going to the cafeteria.
Yes.
I'm anticipating.
Regardless if it was.
Regardless of open or closed, and so that to me is, how that figures out, that's a math concern, because that's gonna have to be money. That's, my concern, and
The budget.
I mean, that would be part of the investigation, is we'd have to look at staffing of the.
but
And who's where?
but I think this is, the conversation needs to happen anyway, if you're moving it to 30 minutes.
Has
This
to
is
happen
a,
anyway,
this
yeah.
is a conversation that needs to happen.
Agree.
Okay, was there another one, Sarah?
I got a text. It says, the kids that are late are the repeaters. They're not late to going to get food. It's someone that's listening to you and they can't talk back. We can't respond, but the kids that are late are repeaters. They're not late due to going to get food. They're late because they can. There's no consequences for the kids that are constantly late, and it's not always lunch that they're late for.
Right. Yeah, great. All right,
But I want, can I just one more thing, just like looking at, if we don't want kids to drive at lunch, like, that's an option too. I mean, we just assume that
You mean if
everybody's
it's-
allowed to drive all the time, but if that's our big concern, that's an option too, I think, about lunch.
Okay, so if it's open, maybe
They could ride a bike or walk
Right.
or run. I mean, if they're really motivated, it's, yeah, I don't know. What's that?
Lots of Chevron,
Yeah.
lots of city.
yeah, but to me, that is not our vision, like our vision is healthy children.
That's what I
Walking
agree.
to Maverick and City Market and
Eating out.
eating is not healthy.
But we're just, so neither is getting in a car. That's the most dangerous thing anybody can do ever, but it's always like, oh, of course it's assumed. Like, let's not assume it. That's all I'm saying.
I think it's a matter of
We'll look
discussion.
into all of it.
Let's
Yeah,
do
okay.
that.
And the idea of
I
a
think
parent
there's
options for kids
Yeah.
that want to ride their bike, but I think open is
Bring
open.
your lunch to
No,
school if
it's
you're worried
right.
about.
It could be like partially open.
Oh, I-
That was.
Well, that's We are, and that's what that's we've
Okay.
asked them to do is like, what's partial, what's open, there's
What are the
many
options,
options, that,
Okay.
they're not coming up with a,
I think.
they're gonna be like, here's some
Who
options,
are we tasking with this?
Mike,
Okay, car, yeah, okay.
Like a car, it's high school, so it has to be like a car, yeah.
And we'll include the middle school too, because they use the ability to leave campus for lunch as an incentive.
Every once in a
Yeah,
while.
yeah.
I don't think so.
Another whole issue.
Okay,
Okay, yeah.
Okay, never mind.
policy EEB is next. This is the first reading. EEB is internet protection access. This one we pulled because of a question from the DTL, from Buffy, basically, right? With that.
So I guess technically it's the second reading, it's just the first with the suggestion.
Okay. So basically, the
That's just
district will
everything in
encourage
red.
parents. The student network. And parents are responsible for monitoring their students' use of Grand County School Students Network. It was just clarifying.
Is the student network CK Express? What is CK Express?
I don't know what it is, but they should have gotten directions if they just need to delete their profile entirely and then re-add themselves as a profile, and then it should work. It's some sort of internet filter. And if it's not working at home, that's the direction that was given to the students
When was that given to the student?
2 weeks ago,
Okay,
because it's been happening for about the last month.
was this what, and this is probably that program that was not working. Jill, you were there. I feel like you were saying that.
Oh, yeah. Well, and,
What was that? What was that?
well, the edgy room.
Edgy room? Is this
But
is
that's.
different?
Yeah.
Okay,
Mhm.
okay.
So delete profile and re-add it?
Yeah, they're like, you know how they log in, is it just completely delete that and then re-add it as a user.
But
What I do?
All the emails.
Oh, that
I just started looking at them, I'm like, holy. cow.
Yeah, I know. They came through this morning.
Right.
Somebody,
Right.
some teacher.
Yeah,
said, hey.
the word.
You look, what teacher, that somebody was in a class.
But do kids have access like on the bus? Or like going to sport events or something, like,
Yeah, when they travel to Spring Events, they're supposed to.
yeah.
If they have if they have Wi-Fi on the bus, they don't have Wi-Fi on the bus.
I thought they had Wi-Fi on the buses.
Some of the buses.
Some of the buses have Wi-Fi
Okay.
capacity.
I've been on a few trips and
Those are
that is
cool Wi-Fi.
not that, I'm not saying there isn't. That's probably another thing that has never been, told to coaches or, indicated that there might be access on certain buses. So if there is, then that's not being, communicated.
Hmm.
And so they're just using probably their hotspot.
Their hotspots.
Yeah.
I mean, I do, yeah, I remember when they talked about
We
buying
talked about
us
that.
access for away games, overnight games in particular.
And I should, we should have asked that. Maybe next, at our next board meeting, Anna will be there. She was
She's asking
probably.
now.
Oh, I'm asking her right now.
He's asking right now.
You are?
Do the buses have Wi-Fi capability
The activity bus.
The activity bus.
for activities?
Well, I think that we also talked about, kids that were driving, like Castle Valley kids, or, we used to have a Thompson, but like having access for them as well, because they were getting home quite late. So if they had those buses as well, but that was always the,
And I think we need, today is today, but I think by the end of the year, within the next 12 months, you're gonna find most of the phone carriers are gonna be tied up with somebody, Starlink or otherwise, and it's all gonna be Wi-Fi, it's all gonna be satellite driven anyway. Information,
Mhm.
it's gonna happen. They're already putting it together with AT&T, it's happening. So there will be phone capability no matter where you're at. If there's a satellite in the sky, you can get it.
If you have AT&T.
Hmm?
If you have AT&T.
Well, but I think AT&T, well, just a little thing. I was up in Castle Valley and they had this 150 people doing a commercial at Colin Frexley for AT&T and Starlink. And but everybody else will follow suit because everybody's gonna go to AT&T. Verizon will be maybe with HughesNet, who knows, whoever put it out there, but it's gonna happen. That's gonna be a thing of the past, we're reading about internet. Yeah. We're gonna be-
All right, so we will, this will be on our agenda not next week, but the week after for
Did we have to read anything then?
second. It'll be on the second
Okay.
time to post.
So are we posting
We're just posting.
as all these highlights? Or are we gonna are we taking out, are we approving it
To post.
to post, like taking out the things that are erased, like Seamus says on page 5, take out this sentence because we can't enforce time limits, et cetera. So are we gonna take out that time limit as he recommends before we post it?
Mhm.
Okay, so
If that's how, if that's what,
today, if we're posting, it would be posting as with the changes, okay,
with the changes that are
that are
here.
suggested, okay.
If you don't want those changes, then we need to discuss
I
that.
see. And on page 8, Seamus recommends sticking with the first paragraph and erasing the alternative. So
Let's see.
Oh, I thought that was the other way around.
I think he says
Okay.
sticking with the original paragraph.
Why would we not want more specific?
I think what I would do is develop our own standards and and rather than putting them in the policy, we could have standards in procedure or something like that, or a handbook. Are they in the handbook anyway? Those types of parental consent for posting pictures on the web or something like that, right? Like if you want your kid to allow your kid to have a picture on the website, you have to give approval for that. Do we want to just keep it kind of vague? Or have specifics in here, I guess is the question. He suggests vague.
Know what the original, what,
It's the
This
paragraph
for
above.
this one. He said the alternative was this one,
Yeah.
because he said alternative.
to just this sentence
Yeah.
here?
So, yes.
Oh,
I like the more specific.
yeah, if you don't follow it, then we get in trouble.
Yeah, the more
Right, that's
specific you
like,
get, the
then the more trouble you
apt
can
you
get
are
in.
to not follow the guidance.
Because
So I
like we
think-
do have kids' pictures on the website, right? Like we have, when we do the art thing and stuff like that.
And
So-
But we will post faces, actual identifiable faces if the parent says no.
Right,
And you
so,
can
and
opt
that's
out.
probably in the handbook or something, or like when you sign your consent. to-
Right.
Power years, there's
Yeah.
parents.
Exactly.
Yeah,
Registration for it.
so I don't know if it's necessary to be in here.
I would stick
The
with the
hard part is
original.
that what I see here is that this is sort of students posting each other's, like it is hard with coaches and basketball games and like some parent just comes to the game and takes a bunch of pictures, kids are all posing, and then so-and-so ends up on the website and the parent calls me and says, well.
But that's not our website, right? That's not our
It
website
can
that they're
be
doing
the
that.
Grand County High School Facebook page, and so we just go in and take those pictures down with that,
Okay.
if there's identifiable stuff about a student.
You can't post on the
Grand
high
County High School
school's
Facebook page.
Facebook page. Ron
You have
has
to
to
do
do
your
those,
own
or
Facebook.
whoever does
Oh,
that.
it's their own Facebook.
It's their
pages. I
own
can't take
Facebook.
those.
Yeah.
Yes,
Yeah.
you can't, I've tried before.
And
And yeah,
this policy was addressing
well, you get to be an
students,
administrator,
I-
one of them.
students posting other student stuff, that's not the point of
Yeah.
it.
No,
Oh,
no, no,
yeah.
no.
No, it's
What they do.
what we are responsible for.
I do, okay.
But when, you know, I question whether whoever's in charge of our Facebook page is double checking to make sure that all those Sterling Scholars that were posted yesterday, that they looked at their,
We have a
approval.
list.
You have a list
Yeah,
that you look at, okay,
like every time somebody posts something.
okay.
Okay. we have a good filter system. But I do think that's a conversation for all of us as admin throughout the district, because I think that the elementary and the middle school, I don't really, sometimes like we post all the time.
You guys post
Yeah,
all the time.
yeah.
They don't post very often.
Right, and so I think some things slip through the cracks through the filters because it's like, we don't post that much.
But I don't think they even, I've never
You
even
Parents will call
seen.
you and say, why is my kid on the, you know, if they see it.
I mean, usually it's, the only kids one is, student loans,
Mhm.
usually.
And if they were listed as not being pictured, then they would figure out how to not identify.
Or I've seen for the middle school, they do those testing, they'll do, testing. They don't show pictures, but like who won the best test when they do RISE testing, and I'm always like, "Ugh, I don't know if that's, should be posted.
Why not?
I mean,
It's just you're putting your child's name out there for whatever.
Yeah.
Yeah,
You know, some people, that's a big deal. for them.
some people, what's a big deal?
Some people want it. I don't want it.
Yeah.
I mean, you got both sides there.
So we're posting this as suggested. We still have at the final.
Yes, so
Yeah.
we would post with the,
I don't know how Nisha, how do you post it usually?
So
Buses do not have Wi-Fi.
with some of them, I was posting the red line version because then people could see what it was and what it was going to be.
Yeah.
So what I would like to post is
is
this
this as is?
as is.
Okay,
Because in reality, this is what you guys would be approving, but if you made any changes to that, that you said, I don't want to include this part,
Right.
whatever, then I would make those edits and then post that.
so if you were gonna post this, what I would suggest for clarification, if we'd agree that so for example, on page 8, let's say we agree with Seamus saying, let's just keep the original
Mhm.
and not the alternative, I would redline it. Because otherwise people will see it highlighted and think
Right.
that's what we mean, right? So you would actually redline that.
Yes,
Okay,
Red
So we
line
do-
is yellow.
redline the yellow part.
yeah, so
Yes.
I would do this, this is what I would do.
I mean, you
I
can,
would take this, and then
yeah,
okay.
right.
So there are other ones that we, then,
and then this would be marked as resolved. And so then that would not have that.
I mean, I'm not trying to be picky here. Could we do something with the original statement, make it green, just so people know that that's what we're dealing with? Not above or below that strikeout. I don't know. Maybe I'm being silly.
Say that again.
You mean Seamus's recommendation, Y word?
Yeah. Yeah, because Seamus is saying keep. We're designating what it is that we're keeping. I mean, maybe it's known, maybe it's.
I just think that's strike, and people
Okay,
then will,
that's fine.
And we can actually.
so at the bottom also
It did take
exhibits
me a
1
minute to
through,
figure out what we were striking and not, but.
yeah, well, I think if it's struck.
If it's struck, then it's obvious.
Yeah.
Right.
Exhibits 1 through 4, this policy document contains a student internet. We don't have exhibits.
We could create exhibits, but I think that's probably meant to create exhibits probably, and our exhibit would be, this is what we do at HMK, this is what we do, so we can strike.
Is that better, Dave?
We could add, we could just add that parent,
Parent handbook, see parent
Has found
handbook,
in, yeah.
okay, or just change it
can
to
you,
say,
can you either add at the bottom of that page? With page 9, the exhibit would be the parental form. So add that as exhibit 1. And any, I guess there's probably an internet form, so there's internet form, a. Yeah, well, you don't want to put the whole handbook in there, but like, no, just those forms that we sign on registration.
I mean, do we need to attach the exhibits to it?
Well, it's just saying, this is, you, then just take out the whole thing.
Just take it out?
Sure.
It's up to you guys.
No, and I think those change so much that we probably don't wanna deal with it, so, yeah.
So we'll just strike this.
Just strike it. Or you could say see handbook, well, it does say that, it's in the handbook, right? It somewhere says that, see student school handbooks for form. Okay, moving on. Do we have,
Hold on one second. Did you guys see the will and will nots in here?
no, I think this is what we're doing, so I don't think we're determining that. Right? That was the question. You were gonna ask them if they were doing that.
So you guys are good with all those ones?
Yeah.
Okay. Yep, I'll edit it up and have that posted after the next meeting.
All right, cost presentation for high reliability schools.
Is that me?
I don't
Yes,
know.
sir.
Oh, sorry.
You're the money guy.
So just the format gets started. We haven't been able to do our presentation of high reliability schools. We've kind of told y'all some about it. We shared a video with y'all on high reliability schools. So basically what we're looking at, Matt and I, along with administration, we've been working really hard to implement systems throughout the district. With the idea that once we have systems in place, it doesn't matter who you hire someone to come into the system, whether it's a superintendent or an administrator. So you're not doing what a lot of small districts do, is jump from, government by government fiat, whatever the superintendent or the principal say or do or something like that. So we're trying to build that in so that it runs for the benefit of our kids, so that, instruction is at a high level. One of the things that we recognize is that we need to tear down the silos between our campuses and implement systems that will enable us to deliver professional development, accountability, expectations at a high level. And we feel that Marzano, who is one of the biggest gurus in education, has what's called high reliability schools, and it's a system. And he will, his organization will provide materials and support and professional development to help our district implement this system. So we're going to talk to you a little bit about cost without being, we haven't really done the presentation just yet on what this will entail. It is a system, so we're not going to be asking teachers to change the way they teach. We're just giving them a container in which the expectations and the measurement and the accountability is built into it. And so Matt's going to talk to you about our 2-year commitment right up front. We've already sent some administrators to the leadership conferences. We have some more slated to go this summer to be trained. We've purchased a number of books, and I do have books available if y'all would like to take a look at this. But the administrators are extremely excited about this. I'm very excited about it because I think this is a very foundational system to improving Grand County and keeping Grand County moving in the same direction, no matter whose picture gets put on the wall. So I will have to give credit to Michelle Searle, because she's the one that kind of educated us on high reliability schools. There's other systems we could have went without out there with. But Marzano has a really good track record. There's a number of schools, I want to say Draper, but that doesn't sound right.
Davis.
Davis? Okay, Davis. I was close. or would be. Davis is a school district in Utah that follows that. They work with a number of others. So I have talked with, the principals and they're going to ante up the biggest part of the money for year one. We're going to ask the district to fill in the gaps. And then, we'll worry about year two, but, they're using their trust lands money, to help with this. And so, we just, want to present, so.
If I may, we had a community council meeting at the high school last night and very supportive and did come up with funding for parts of this to begin. Travel and some other things and some education and support. So anyway, the community council was very supportive. So high school.
I just received the quote, the invoice this morning. And I can send you guys a copy of it, but the total for year one is $37,117.82. School community councils have agreed to put in $16,000 from HMK and the Grand County High School.
Each,
Or total.
16 each,
Each.
HMK
Yep,
and
yep.
high school.
In each. The middle school we're still looking at that and what they have to cover with their plan. Should they not be able to include that in their school community council money, the district would be looking at, a little over $5,000 for year one, which is something that we can pay. I did meet with Michelle this morning, to get a little more information about this. And, I think she gave me an analogy of basically having a really messy garage and unorganized and just a lot of stuff stacked in it. And compared that to kind of where we're at, we have a lot of things going on, but there's no systems in place. This system comes in, helps you sort, move out, get rid of what you don't need and organize so that we can have that system foundation to go forward. So that's definitely something I feel like the district needs, more systems of process. And this is an area where we have the support, and I think, it's a good thing for the district.
Well, and I think the idea that we have each department, a leadership team that actually is cohesive. And that may change, but at least they have the guidelines to go, whoever steps in. So over time, we saw this at whatever we call it, conference, when Bernal or whoever was doing it, and they had the team together, and I wonder how you put that together. It sounds like the leadership teams will be that base to keep things flowing, continuity.
So what are we paying for exactly?
So the process to get this set up, there is, level one surveys. That's $750 per school, level one certification, that's $2,000 per school. There's some interactive webinars, 2 per school, they're at $1,650.
So it's like professional
Yeah.
development.
So for all the
What-
staff,
Right.
these
One day-
webinars.
With the surveys, they surveyed the campuses to find out the particular needs so they can tailor it to us. We get a dedicated person. I'm sure they have other school districts too, but they work with us. We'll get 3 days of on the ground, in-person professional development. We'll get materials. 'Cause I think there's a book quote in there with that also. We'll have access to webinars to support this in year one. Year two will be somewhat similar. It's gonna be a little bit more expensive because there's an extra day of PD in there. But that's the thing that we're gonna get is we're gonna get handholding through the process.
What about, and these certifications you meant, you said something about giving certifications. Does that mean we are certified as a high reliability school? And what does that get us?
That's a step. Level one's your first step for that
Okay.
certification, and 2,
What does that mean?
it's a pride thing.
Okay,
It actually means, hey, we're taking this seriously, and we are putting systems in place, so that hopefully, that would help with something that we could put on our website.
Sure.
And really
Recruitment, maybe.
advertise that, hey, this is what we're doing.
Okay.
Come to our schools, hopefully it would help our.
Does it trickle down to teachers on, or is it just
Oh,
leadership,
absolutely.
Oh, yeah.
or is it leadership professional development, or is it teachers?
Yeah.
They come and teach everybody.
They will teach everybody, or are we we're not,
No.
training
No.
admin, or yeah, training the
They'll
trainers.
start that way and then they'll come down and.
Okay.
do it.
Oh, look,
Just gonna give you
Oh,
a
look.
little visual if it's okay. So level one is school culture, and so that's what we're measuring. And then level two,
School
school culture, climate, those kind of things.
Okay.
And so the idea to be certified is that this is a safe space, right? So there's steps. Marzano's whole thing is like systematizing everything. Then level two, do you remember?
It's,
That's level three.
it's, instruction.
The clear viable career, teacher clarity. So
Yes,
level
teacher
two
clarity.
is teacher clarity, and you know, like, HMK might be a little bit better, cause they've been focusing on teacher clarity, but the idea behind it, and so yes, it is absolutely. The culture is measured by parents, students, teachers, and admin, right? And this is the foundational step, so that you can work on teacher clarity, which is when you walk into every classroom, the students understand what they're learning, you know. And then level three is a guaranteed and viable curriculum. So and then level four and level five, and so this is what we're getting certified on, just to provide an awful, like, not artistic visual. But that's what we're talking about when we get certified, is like, we are certified that all of our schools across our district have a viable school culture. We're doing good on culture, right? So that our conversations are no longer like, the high school's this, or the teachers feel this way. It's very much, here's what a good school culture looks like. We've identified where the problems are. This is how you fix it, right? It's sort of like teachers moving from, you do all these projects in my class, and if you jump through these hoops, you'll get an A, to standards-based grading, meaning these are all the things that you have to know and be able to perform in ninth grade English. And how do we do that? This is just providing a structure and framework for us to really look at what's going on in our schools and have these deep conversations without it feeling personal.
And I think we have to understand this is for the long haul.
Correct.
The
So
first
year
portion of
one,
it-
Year
we getting-
one, we're gonna do
One
culture
and
and
two?
teacher clarity.
We're
Yes,
doing
yeah, one and two.
We're doing one and two.
Okay.
And with the certification, I mean, we could have went in at a cheaper, lower level, but
Yes.
with the certification, they're holding us accountable. And so it's like, yeah, we're paying for this, and this is our expectation. So
Okay.
Michelle, really kind of summed it up pretty well yesterday, because one of the things I talked with the team about was, what's our theme gonna be for next year? Do we wanna keep 212? And she said, when you look at all of this, it's, the big thing is, what's your brand? And it's branding the school. It's just like, this is what Grand County is about. You know, when you come here, it's like, yeah, I can't spell, I graduated Grand County. It's not that anymore. It's, hey, I graduated Grand County, and this is what it means, is that it's a high reliability school. So all of the teachers and all the administrators, everything is plugged into the system. That's making sure that we're delivering high quality education.
I think it's great.
So 37,000 the first year, and then the second year,
We don't have.
haven't gone that
a
one.
quote yet, but it's
It will-
about
39.
Okay.
And the community councils are basically looking at it year by year to see how it advances and
Is-
how much is responsibility of the district and how much we can.
Is there an end date?
Yeah, how long, do you do it in Dutch for them? Probably not, right?
Well, you have to get certified every,
Yeah.
you have to go back and recertify for level one.
That's a good question.
Yeah, I don't
I
know.
kind of know, and talking with Michelle this morning, is years one and two are gonna be the heaviest financial lift. Then it gets lighter because you've moved up the ladder in steps and it becomes less hand holding and more your systems are in place.
Yeah, process.
But she said it's like a 5 to 8 year process to be like fully integrated if you wanna go all the way to the top and just not stop at step 4.
Okay.
But perpetually after year 2, that cost will go down because we become more responsible for ourselves and some of that stuff. And they're there for the support system, but now we have the implementation and the buy-in and
Mhm.
the foundation, so.
I think it's
Perfect.
fantastic.
Any other questions?
Could, yes, could we as board members go to the teacher training or
Sure.
observe? or-
Y'all are welcome to all of our PDs, absolutely.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, that's a good idea.
And if y'all, if y'all wanna go, the district can try to find money to send you.
No, I think just going to
Just
the
the local
professional things,
things,
yeah, that would be great.
Matt, send them to Florida, would you?
Yeah. Preferably. During-
Is that December? That's not, August, right?
Okay, that's a huge step forward. Awesome.
Okay. Next, is the personnel list. So this is just the time, so, so this will be approved, on our board meeting. These are our new hires and everything. So usually, so we do not, this is just kind of for your, information. We will not talk about specifics, people, that would be executive, right? If you do have a problem with somebody, like, oh, I just want to talk, there's an issue I thought of. Please could just go talk to Mike or Matt about that. Or we can, and then if really, we can talk about it in executive, if it's really necessary. But this would be, we have added, you can see if they're certified in positions. If there's any budget ramifications, so that would be new positions or anything like that. And if you scroll down, here are the open certified positions. So we will review that, monthly. So right now we have a first grade teacher open, a sped teacher there at middle school, a TEL, at HMK, 7th grade language arts, 7th grade math, 7th grade science, elementary principal, another first grade teacher, special ed teacher, and then a 3rd grade teacher. So those are all the, openings that we are starting the hire advertised for.
Yeah,
We've advertised.
We are advertising, we have interviewed,
Oh, good.
on some, we're moving forward.
Okay.
On that, I mentioned to the board last meeting that we were, implementing the full frontline package, which is the K-12 applicant tracking. That's a national platform, and that is already showing dividends with more applications and more interest.
Great.
We're doing some,
That's online now?
yeah, we're doing, kind of some professional development on the go as far as creating or making our selection process more robust and in line with, guidance from the Department of Labor. So we have screenings, and documentation on that, and then conducting behavior-based interviews. So we're moving along. As we go forward, I would like to see that start much earlier. I feel like this is like in my past, we were hiring in, January and February. So moving that up so that we really know we're going there, but in process and going along.
And then, just talking about, we'll talk about some program positions and priorities, but just talking with Matt about, budget priorities and in the past that we've had presentations of attrition and positions, and the board, I give him the input that the board really isn't involved in, say, moving people around. So if you have an HMK, you have K through 6, your teachers are in there. That is up to building principal to be moving people around. That would be up to superintendent and principals moving people, even the district wide and transferring. We do like a heads up if it is a transfer that's kind of obscure or involuntary transfer. We just like just the heads up. But and then so anything moving around is up to their discretion. However, if there was a position being attrition or, getting rid of a position, we would like to know that and be
Anything added or taken away would
Right.
you're right, anything added or taken away, moving,
would be before the
Especially because
board.
their budget, they
Yeah.
affect the budgets.
yes, and why I think it helps in a board meeting to talk about, oh, this is why we are getting rid of, our enrollment's down, our funding in this program is down. This is why we would be dissolving this
And we
position,
absolutely want that transparency, so that would be a board discussion.
so.
And then just to echo what Melissa said, as far as the personnel list being posted and for board review, if you do have questions on that, come see me, come see the superintendent, so that, we can address those concerns. because, the board, does approve that on the consent agenda, and we don't, that's not the right place to get into a debate, so. But we can go from there.
I have a question, and this probably goes back in history before my time, maybe not. But, we were talking with Jeremy and the Great Coalition. Is there a possibility we could put something on an agenda or a discussion for the future about, employee housing and our properties that we have and, I mean, Red Rock and providing in the future, a place where something could be built, apartments or whatever, specifically for.
So we have that,
History.
we have that discussion probably every year, and we usually do discuss that in a retreat. Which talks about priorities, pros and
Just like all
cons,
the information.
and,
We can have that discussion.
I could probably talk with you
Yeah.
privately first
We
about
we
that.
can have that discussion. We had, since I've been here, I've had that discussion multiple times. I've talked to other, like the hospital and other. Similar
wanna know why
entities that are dealing with that issue. We absolutely
Okay.
can talk about it.
We can add it to,
I do wanna caution the board, though, it's a very difficult
I'm sure it's
concept,
complicated.
and, yeah.
and that's why we've been having it every year for.
I would really like to know, I would like to know what, maybe just a conversation for why this is not already happening.
Well,
That's what I-
it's a
Yeah.
feasibility issue, and I can share that with you one-on-one, or I can share.
Yeah, I
it
can
with
do
you.
Yeah, no,
Let
we
me
can
just
have,
talk privately with you
well,
about
we
it
can
first.
have, I think it's an okay conversation to, again, have it out. We've talked about it in facilities, we talked about it in budget. I mean, there's all the different aspects of it.
If I may, in facilities, we touched on it. We had more important things, middle schools and other things to do in those days. But that being said, it was on, we need to look at it later, so I think it
Yeah, I
needs to
think
be
it's time right
studied. And it can be just with Matt, but I think that we need to come up. For instance, I probably know a little bit about the real estate part of it.
Sure,
And
yeah.
what's really gonna happen with all that, it's just not as simple as we're gonna build
Oh,
houses.
yeah, I
and we're
get
gonna
that.
do. So we have that, so we have a knowledgeable conversation, so I would suggest if we could figure out, maybe even it's just facilities, sit down and talk to Matt and get some criteria. We do
Love
need to
that.
have a facilities meeting. And so I would suggest that,
That's
if I may,
directly
because I
related
feel coming into it half-cocked, it's gonna be,
It's,
gonna be.
That's always had.
I mean, it always is,
Yeah.
right? I'm just saying that it's so hard.
I know.
Mhm.
I
Yeah.
mean,
And
It
I know that we're not really talking about this in depth right now, but in my previous district, we had a fourplex apartment. So I have some experience with that, on how we provided all of that. But one of the ideas that I floated out there is that liquidating our properties, putting it into an endowment, and then we use the money for incoming staff for a set period of time to get them into the community. That way, we're not having to build, maintain, manage, or anything like that, yeah. But that's,
That's
Right.
off
We got it.
agenda,
Yeah.
so that's.
Okay, thank you. Thank you
Okay.
for that.
And then open classified, so again, these are usually open until probably August 1st is when the hiring process starts for people that are classified. Since their contract wouldn't start until August. Middle of August. Correct.
We're not gonna use the word contract, we'll say work,
Okay,
work notification.
their job start
Thank
date.
you.
But we do have current openings. That are not unfulfilled, that there were some people that left,
Mhm.
or they've been
So-
open for a while, right?
We've had some class positions open for a while, not getting a ton of interest. We are utilizing substitutes, especially at HMK. Some of the people that left in going through that process.
Any questions about personnel? Next is advanced planning. So I just want to figure out a date to visit the child nutrition program, so eating at the lunch, since that was put off.
So where do we go to do that? HMK.
HMK lunchroom.
Okay, that's fine, I just.
And
didn't know
so if we want to go, next week is spring break, so, and then the Monday after that, we do have our No, we already did a site visit.
Mhm.
We rode the bus. Oh my gosh, I rode that on Monday.
How could you forget?
So maybe, yeah. Are you looking,
Is it possible that we can rearrange the agenda for a
do
minute
you want to talk about?
and skip down?
Yes.
Because of scheduling complex.
Yes, sure. All right, we'll talk about that at the end. Program position priorities. You want to talk about?
Yeah, that's good.
Okay. So I'm just going to let Matt talk about where we are with the budget, and budget usually will determine our
I'll take one down.
priorities.
You make them bigger, even with my reader somehow.
You can turn the light back on.
Oh,
Yeah,
yeah.
maybe that's it. It's like I'm sitting here going, oh, yeah, there, I can
There's a
see
bad
the number.
reflection on that. There it is. There
Okay.
you are, Peter.
I want to cover a couple of things on this, at a high level, but also try and get some direction on, some of the priorities and programs that we have. So what you have there is, the information we have from the legislative estimate. Till I get my copy back off. As you're going down that, you can see, what we have above the line as far as our estimates. The changes in revenue is highlighted in that yellow orange cover, and those that are highlighted on the far right-hand side, which is changing revenue projections for 26, different from 25 mid-year, are already in place. Looking at the green line, the estimated new funding for FY 26 is $726,692. That's our new money in.
And this is property taxes and WPU,
This is, yes.
mostly property.
So if you go down to the blue line, we have some estimated costs for all employees. And this would be it, what the board wants to do as far as direction is going forward for next year. You have your cost with one level increase, and then your cost with the salary increase, 1% salary increase, cost of living, and one level. And underneath that is your cost for medical insurance. Now, the medical insurance per 1% increase in medical insurance is the $16,566. We won't have the number of what that looks like until I think the 23rd or 24th, when we'll get that from
I mean, what the percent
Yeah,
increase will
what-
be, so
what-
this is per 1%, so if they have a 3% increase, you triple that.
Correct. And we'll get that at our health and pool meetings in April. Just because of the conversations that have been had and some trying to read between the lines when the actuaries are talking about our experience in insurance, I would anticipate that we have a more significant hike this year than we've had in the past. For a long time, it stayed pretty flat, pretty normal. COVID came in and there were some arbitrary, hard to calculate those costs and the change of use in that. And so there were some actuarial assumptions made that at 1 year had us had a 22% increase. Then as the market started to settle again, like last year, we saw a 0% increase. This year, I would anticipate, and this is just my best guess, between 5 and 7%.
Medical increase.
Yeah, 5 and 7% increase. So if we had a 7% increase, that you'd be looking at $115,000, $962. So adding those numbers in and looking at other estimated new costs, at the very bottom, you have technology, there's 125,000, that's for the onward. The increase in onward services that we've committed to. And then the school resource officer, at the 85,000 that used to be paid by ESSER funds would be us. And that's a priority from discussing, with the board, and all this can change, but is established as a priority right now, so money already allocated to
And
that.
does that include, so that 85,000 is our share, because we split it,
Yep, that is our
so
share.
that's our share.
That is our share.
It's just been covered in a different
With us
different
there,
money.
but we still,
Right.
but still the city or the county, whoever's sharing it with us is still, we think, gonna share it with us.
Yes.
Okay.
So when you put the numbers together, you're looking, what I would call a baseline, a bare minimum would be to do levels and a 1% cost of living increase. So that combined is 345,000. 346, give or take, and then
Do
the
you have
tech,
that number written in here anywhere?
no,
No, okay, what'd you say?
345,
345, 857.
346.
And then that technology commitment and the school resource officer is 210,000. So that comes to a total of 555,857.
555,
Say
and that
number.
does not include medical
That
insurance.
does not include,
Doesn't.
doesn't include medical insurance.
Okay.
So if you then add my best guess estimate of insurance, the 115,962, you come up with a total of 671,837. Now, if you take that number,
Repeat that number.
671,837.
Okay.
If you take that number and look at the green 726, which is your new funding, that leaves you with $54,000 to do the bare minimum of those commitments.
So the changes in revenue projections, that is just new growth on property taxes.
Yes.
That's new growth.
The-
So potentially the board could do a truth in taxation to freeze
To
tax
increase.
rates, to capture
It could,
reassessments. If, yeah.
should the board do so now.
To freeze the tax
In our
rates.
previous conversations, the feeling was that we were not interested in doing truth in taxation this year, as a result of some of the things that the city had done to raise, now that, if that feeling changes, that changes, but that was the feeling. If you look at this, really what's saving us is the necessarily existent small schools money that's coming in as a result of that.
Is that on here somewhere?
That piece of legislation.
Okay,
So, like I said, we've been saying it's tight, and that's very tight. You have a list of 18 or 19 board priorities and that kind of money. Now, I'm gonna stop, and Jerry can help me on this, but talk about kind of some theoretical things, because I live in a theoretical world. The board has been conservative in doing what I think is a great thing over the past several years, which is the one-time compensation. Right? You're being conservative, it's not going into your ongoing money, because we're trying to just make sure that we're fiscally sound. However, at a point when that one-time compensation continues year after year after year, it shifts to basically ongoing money, from a perception point of view. So in this situation, and with our current fund balance, which is right around 16, the board has an opportunity here to pick and choose some of their priorities off of that list. And primarily the top one, I guess, would be to give a higher cost of living than 1%, to keep up. I think that's very important that we keep that up. We can do that using the ongoing money or the one-time money that's shifted to ongoing. Does that make sense? Am I losing?
well, that one-time compensation has been coming out of the fund balance, because we've, right, so we've just, and now we have 16,000.
Well, no.
15 million.
Conversations that Matt and I've had is that the one-time compensation has been happening for like 4 or 5
Sure.
years now. So in lieu of giving the one-time
Sure.
compensation, some ideas for the board to think about is giving
An increase.
an increase and knowing that moving forward, we've increased that, so that's gonna become an
Sure.
ongoing thing, so to speak, but
Sure,
like a 1 to 3%
sure.
cost of living increase
Sure.
in lieu of doing the
Sure,
one-time
sure, sure.
compensation.
And that would be you know, advertising and telling people the one-time compensation that you're accustomed to is not going to be there. Instead, we're moving that to ongoing money. And like Jerry talked about, and I didn't write down numbers, but kind of extrapolating the experience we've had there and calculating, doing the math backwards, you know, it's reasonable to think that we could give an additional, you know, 2 or 3%
Okay,
maybe.
question about cost of living. So does that work, is that, you're guaranteeing a cost of living raise every year?
Unfortunately,
I mean, I'm just thinking about this idea of getting rid of the one-time compensation, right? Is that?
yeah, and
Okay.
it's standard.
Yeah,
to have that
I have it.
to have
yeah,
that
from
cost
the
of
teacher.
living.
Yeah, yeah.
One of the things that, just to make the board more aware, and Jay and I talked about it, as you look at increasing that cost of living over a year, you know, 0.5% in the moment may not seem like a big deal, but when you take that exponentially, year after year after year, doing everything you can to stay competitive keeps you in the game. If you start to get a deficit where you're not giving, you know, we're being too conservative and not giving a 0.5% or 1% year after year, it gets to the point where to be competitive, you're gonna need a 7% increase in your salary schedule, and it's,
Yeah.
there's no way to do it.
Right.
So just capitalizing on that, staying competitive, the board needs to keep that in consideration. Now, what that does, in my opinion, you know, staying competitive, keeping up with inflation, giving a 3% cost of living, it still doesn't help your dilemma on some of your suggested priorities.
Yeah, right.
And how you want to address them, whether they're off the table now, because of this, or whether, you know, I mean, we do have a good fund balance, and there may be some things that the board feels like we need to tap into that. You know, that's a debate on one time, but really outside of giving, you know, the 3% and what we've talked about, the board doesn't have a ton of flexibility.
So what are you saying the cost of living percentage is?
It's far, well,
So is this a 1%? So every 1% increase is 197,000 for every, no, that's level. For every 1% increase with level is 148,000. So if we did 3%, it would be triple that.
yes,
Okay.
Wait, so the cost of living and the 1% is the same thing.
well, I put them together in the first number that I gave you. I combined them at 345. But each additional percent with that level is the 148.
But so, tell me a
of
percentage of, so if you take out the 1%, you're saying cost of living plus 1% is
With a level
with a level,
is 140.
but what is the percentage of cost of living that you're? Do you know what you need?
I don't understand. I
Well,
understand your question.
1 to 3%. I don't know what that cost of living is. What this says is for every percent that you choose to increase the overall.
Okay, so we're not, I just,
Yeah.
I don't like the separation, I guess, to me it's
Yeah.
1 to 3% of
Increase in
increase.
salary.
Which
Oh,
includes, okay, I was double checking that the cost
Okay.
of living plus a 1%. To
Right.
me, that should just be
Yeah.
one,
that's
and
what-
that's
1%,
what that is.
okay.
That's what.
And so the 1% is that on this,
Yes.
okay.
So you have the opportunity to
So-
lower this in lieu of the.
And
one-time,
I
that's what you
think
guys-
what has happened with doing that one-time compensation is, as a district, when we see, when we go into negotiations and we see those, when we get compared to other districts, we do not get to see
The
the one-time compensation percentages on those.
It's not part of that survey.
And so that is a bummer, because
Yeah.
here we are,
We can't
you know, at the very bottom, not the very bottom, but we're, you know, here we are at bottom, but we just gave them a one-time compensation of 5%,
Yeah.
which would then push us higher. And so
Right.
it's not, we haven't been taking advantage of
Yeah.
our PR, right? Of
Right.
like, hey, we actually aren't here,
Alright.
we're
Yeah.
here. So
And
I've been always wanting to put that on the salary schedule if we could, because it
and
helps.
I mean, we could add that, take the data from that survey and add ours and use that as
Yeah.
advertising and a talking piece. And I said it in negotiations, that survey that is put together by superintendents and business administrators and the HR directors. It struggles to compare apples to apples, and so it's not, like you're saying, an accurate picture.
And also it sometimes includes benefits will be different, right? Like.
Benefits are different and really it's hard to capture on that, like, for example, if another district is paying, let's say $30,000 for family insurance, their share of family insurance because they have bad experience or they're in a different pool or whatnot. And we're only paying 18,000 for family coverage with a different insurer. It doesn't mean that our coverage is less valuable or less rich than what they're doing. It's just different and really hard to calculate and compare.
And I would say we need to get away from the one time and these sorts of things, because we need to have something that's continuous and, because I'm gonna tell you right now, not to be a naysayer, but I think you're gonna see a real pushback in Grand County on property values, assessed value. Taxes are going to, if people win, they're gonna go down. Property tax, it's not going up. Values in Moab and Grand County are going down substantially, which is probably a correction. And so we need to gird our loins and be ready for that.
Yeah.
And,
Right.
you know, there's gonna be some changes in wind. Now, we're gonna be in an interesting situation because inflation is probably, let's say it goes up, but cost of living may go down because now we have lesser amounts to rent and lesser amounts to purchase homes, which are big ticket items for our employees. But we're in a volatile situation. So I think we need to have something that we know is for sure or is real, as opposed to maybe we're gonna do this next year or next quarter and be ready.
So looking at that list, and obviously, I mean, you guys understand how tight it is. There are other ways to accomplish some of those goals if you want. Like Melissa talked about earlier with new positions or attrition, taking away an FTE or adding an FTE. We have the ability to, for example, in the situation where we have a TEL teacher that is leaving, that FTE is leaving. We have the discretion to move that. So, for example, that could be pushed to a special education teacher. That could be pushed to this, that, or the other. The board also can look at, and I would encourage us to be more strategic in our staffing, because I don't feel like we have, but you can look at some of the openings and say, okay, is this the best allocation to have? You know, and this is just an example. I'm not saying this is good or bad. I'm just using this as an example, but let's look at, do we need to have a 7th grade science teacher and a 7th grade or an 8th grade science teacher? Can that position teach 7th and 8th grade science and really capitalize on moving that around and making sure that we're allocated appropriately? And there's a number of areas that we can look at to try and accomplish some of the priorities that the board has put out through kind of the non-tangible, not adding the money, not, you know, taking more out of the one time. But again, that's the board's discretion to, you know, kind of guide us and tell us how you want to go forward.
If we decide to increase, our percent cost of living salary increase to say 3%, so it would be close to $1 million, because you've given me 346 for these two things. So $1 million to do a 3%. That will then, because we don't have that much incoming money extra, that would come out of the fund balance. We'd be draining our fund balance, right?
That's how you'd balance the
Which
budget.
we do now when you do the one-time compensation.
Right,
a little
we
bit.
pull it out, we're pulling out. So, but now it's gonna be ongoing. So we're gonna hope that we continue to have the funds, because like Dave says, property taxes are probably not gonna continue to increase as they have for the last 4 or 5 years, where we've just been getting more money from property taxes.
So the assumption there is not that going forward, we will have more money coming in. It's that we've had that money for the last number of years, and we are forecasting that we will continue to have that.
But just not increasing it.
Yeah,
just
but
to be more
so
stable.
that 3%, so moving that from, and it's kind of like I said, a theoretical process, but moving it from one time to ongoing because of our experience. And we're not anticipating that.
We're not anticipating it's gonna go down. It's just that we don't want to drain our fund balance and then be stuck with.
Correct. Yes, yes.
So, but, so as long as we keep it reasonably
But I,
modest.
but I think, and I think it's also that we've been very, proactive in making sure that spending isn't out of control, and so that even when we make the budget, our income is here, our expenses are here, but really, we're only spending, we're not spending as much, and that's what's been going into the
Because
fund
we haven't
balance.
filled positions or whatever, right? Like,
Whatever
that's
it
why we have to
is,
spend.
and so, but if that,
Yeah.
but it's been consistently,
Sure,
so if
sure.
we might not be draining our fund balance, we might just be utilizing that what we would have been putting into the fund balance by being
Yeah.
very conscious of how we're spending our
Sure.
money.
And I,
Right.
I just, yeah,
Is how I
support the idea. I
see
definitely
that.
support the idea.
Yeah,
Yeah, I think I think we need to improve whatever realistic, not on a whim of the board or a vote of the board. Monies to our new employees, and by doing so, by doing increases yearly. Based on some number, I don't know what the inflation number is based on, then we at least assure whoever's being hired that it's gonna be okay, not wondering if they get a one-time compensation. I think it's critical to get it to be.
so that keeps us competitive.
Yep.
And I think is a fiscally responsible thing to do because of the history of how we handled that one time. It doesn't answer your question about a lot of the wants.
Right.
No.
And it doesn't,
Because the wants are gonna come out of this 54K. This
Correct.
54.
They log one.
There's a lot of wants for $54,000.
those are your wants. So.
Okay.
That's where we're at. I think the board can look at that and, have conversation, and then as we go forward, we'll continue to try and strategically move the non-tangible and come back with a recommendation for a cost of living negotiations for next year.
Can I ask a question about the SRO? Because I know that this has been discussed before. I don't remember. How much does the state chip in for the SRO, right? They chip in.
No,
Okay, no.
the city,
No, but I thought the state, when they came down with this rule that we have to have a guard.
Right, the guardian.
But I thought there was some funding, not all, but some.
there's been asks, it's been talked about quite a bit, but right now it is not, it's an unfunded mandate on.
Yeah. Do they give us that $500 that we're supposed to give the Guardians, or does that come out of our pocket?
And it comes out of our pocket.
That
Oh
comes
my
out-
God.
Yeah, so they told us, yeah, it was an unfunded mandate.
To the secret.
Well,
And
geez.
that's an entirely different subject. We could
Yeah, I know. I
talk
just,
about
I
all
was just
day.
curious if this 85 was our portion and then, I was just curious
So
about it.
the city, we're partnering with the city on that,
Okay,
but yes,
Okay.
that is our portion.
gotcha. Okay.
Yeah, I mean, it's bankrupting bigger school district. I mean, they're having a tough time.
Yeah, okay.
So, I mean, 55,000.
But why the city and not the county?
The city ponied it up.
Okay.
They offered at first
Yeah.
and said, hey, we've gone back and forth between the county doing the SRO and the city doing the SRO, depending on who was the chief of police and who was the sheriff.
Okay.
It was more of just, what they, and then the city came to us and were like, hey, we will
Oh, okay.
do this.
So
Because
we
of,
do get Kurt from the county, but he's very part-time. Do we?
We don't compensate him at all.
Yeah,
yeah,
so.
The other thing is, again, just a caution, these are estimates, preliminary numbers. I don't anticipate that they will change significantly in one way or the other. We do have, the UASBO meetings coming up next Monday and Tuesday. These numbers should be rock solid by then, when the state presents to us. Jerry and I will be there getting clarification from, and solidifying these numbers, and then coming back in April, the 22nd, 23rd board meeting, the
All things
23rd, 4th. All things budget, we'll be cleaning this up and really having a better idea. I guess the one question or piece of request that I would need is, if there's anything on that list that of priorities, that is just something the board feels we have to have. I've already taken the technology, I've already taken the school resource officer, because those were have to have. The list of everything else, future funding for SCSC, Beacon, the health aid, telehealth, what's going on with CTE. The assistant principal, so, the diligent community, we did purchase the diligent community, that's already been purchased, which is a platform that we are going to use to bring our board meetings into the 22nd century, so that's exciting. Anyways, if there's anything left on that list that the board feels as a group is a must, we need to have that discussion.
My priority, and this is personally, but I with special ed
Yeah,
is
I would agree.
that
I
to
think it's
me
critical.
is my priority. To make sure that is
And that would be one teacher?
well, at this point, it was HMK, but
Well,
could
I-
be
I-
figured out
Right.
internally,
I-
that's
I-
great.
Again, we're advertising for that. As I
We're
talked
already
about-
advertising.
Yeah, I talked about, some of the non-tangibles,
Mhm.
FTE, things of that nature,
Moving things.
that we can move around without adding it. We'll continue to explore that.
Yeah, sure.
And I do feel like, I mean, I agree, that's a priority. I can't tell you right now if it's one teacher, two teachers,
Okay.
Yeah.
one teacher, 6 A's, but
Yeah, that
That
going
would be kind
forward.
of an internal thing that you would work out with the sped plan. I agree. I would say that's a critical thing.
Real quick question, but before, is that this minimum school program, the K-12 regular school, dropped to 30? That's WPU. So that to me means that's a teacher and a half that we are not filling.
That's an attrition
Yeah,
question. And,
Yes.
and in the past, I don't, I don't historically know how you made, how the board has made that decision or the guidance they've given, but when you are, seeing enrollment go down, you have to start to make those decisions. I've talked to other districts in the state, San Juan and local severe. A lot of districts are, electing to not fill positions that are leaving because of enrollment.
Sure.
For retirement, or that they're losing that through attrition. That's a discussion that we can continue to have as that goes.
well, that to
And-
me,
and-
when I see those open positions, when there's two first grade, a TEL and a third grade, usually we have, dissolved a position at HMK. And those would be on, based on the ratio but I just want to make sure that that should be that number should be used to
Agreed.
higher. And then as we move forward, if we're still seeing, now I'm talking like 10 years in the future, but like maybe only 3, but as those smaller numbers are moving up into secondary,
Yes,
that
yeah.
does mean what
Yeah.
you said,
Mhm.
maybe it's a 7th and 8th grade science teacher. And so we need to always be aware of, just because we've always attritioned at HMK, that we're not just
Right.
that we're not touching secondary.
Sure.
Cause that's just not fair to do to the kids that need a lot more one-on-one, and a secondary can have bigger classrooms.
So another concern or discussion point that we can have, when I look at this, attrition, I think this impacts significantly, some of the things that we talked about, like dual immersion. Talking with other districts, about dual immersion and how that grows and how that's implemented. It's most effective when your staffing and enrollment is growing, because you're bringing that teacher in grade after grade after grade. Where we're forecasting numbers going down and talking about whether or not, with that $230,000 decrease, we need to absorb some positions. In my mind, it does not create a great environment for fostering a new program, like dual immersion. So you need to take that into consideration as we going forward on that. And again, another one that I know is important that the board has expressed is the health aid, and what that looks like, because that position would be more than you have in your discretionary
To go
money,
to-
right?
So
to go to-
that's not in the budget right now. The health aid is not in next year's budget.
No, it's not.
Not even the.
Because it was a grant, right?
Yeah, it was a one-time, 1 year only, so it's not, so, and that might be one of the things where you say, you know what, we are going to step up and use one-time money to fund this for a year and reevaluate next year and say, okay, well, maybe we found another revenue to continue that going forward. Or, yeah, we paid for it one extra year out of the fund balance, but we really can't afford to keep it going. That's a discussion the board needs to have.
I would also see it as, you know, maybe it's one time, you could do some of these positions one time. And then have the superintendent and business administrator really dig deep, you know, at like looking at efficiency, in departments, right? And so, you know, looking at, is this the best structure? As you know, it is, maybe some people's job descriptions will be changed so that they can actually do some of the work that has to be done instead of like pet projects. And so looking at, and I don't think that's a this year solution. I think this year's solution would be one-time money funding, and then next year going, you know, how can we look at job descriptions? How can we look at the positions that we have to really make sure that we're, you know, making differences in the kids versus, you know,
And I think that's
Top
just
heavy.
standard operating.
Yeah.
Just make. it
I just
happen.
don't think that
Keep it.
sometimes we've been so flush with money for the past couple of years, we've been like, oh, let's add a position, add a position, add a position. And then we go, oh, wait, we don't have a job description. What is that person doing?
Right.
And there's been, you know, it's been up to us, but then new superintendent walks in and goes, wait, what do you do?
What is that?
What is that? So it's been a, you know, and I used the term, what is it now? I can't remember, bubble gum and
Bailing wire.
bailing wire in other situations, but I think it has been, you know, a lot of that. And so these guys are walking into something going,
So you're
okay,
saying you guys did that and these
Oh.
guys are just trying to figure it out?
yeah, no, it's.
Okay. I just want that. on record.
Thanks for that, appreciate that.
Get on my soapbox for a second. I really feel that there's been a lack, and this is not, I'm not placing blame on anybody or criticizing anybody. But it's blatantly clear when you look at our organization, we have not had strategic leadership decisions made to have the systems process in place, to look at this, to set that precedent, to think about how it affects other systems. And we really need to get the board. Now, the board, as we've talked about in the past, as board members, you know, you're not as powerful, or you don't have as much freedom and discretion as you would think, or the general public might think. We're very limited on those things. But we can be very strategic on what we can have an impact on, and that's a direction that, as you know, as clerk of the board, I would like to help guide this board
Bless you.
into that strategic strategy, so.
Yeah, right.
Okay,
Yeah, I just might. I just wondered about, like, the elementary school, you know, they had 5 teachers and then. Like this year or last year, they went to 4 teachers and they had the extra teacher, or like, I'm not really that familiar with it. Are we looking at that as a possible source for some?
yes, we're looking at all that,
Okay.
taking that,
Nutrition.
you know, adjusting it, reallocating FTEs, maybe absorbing FTEs, things of that nature.
And if that does also get reallocated, that frees up some, school community council money, cause there are some stipends.
It could
In
absolutely,
there,
if that,
you know.
how that goes.
But, and those school community council plans are next on
So-
April,
They're soon.
yeah.
Yeah, we'll have to turn in their 26-year plans, I think. By
26.
mid,
Oh, the year.
by mid-April, so they'll be here next.
Yeah, so next week.
I thought the same thing.
Yeah, they're done.
Yeah, questions, concerns?
No, we'll have more information, when we get back from you guys,
Money.
but specifically on this and be able to talk a little bit more next board meeting.
I mean, every, I do have staff members saying, whatever happened to this, whatever happened to this, why are we doing this? And I just look at them and go, it all comes down to money. So,
Well,
promises, like 5-year, 10-year plans, even facilities, why didn't we get this? And I just say, because of money.
Yeah.
Well, as student enrollment is shrinking, I mean, teachers have to be moved to where the larger grades are, and then, it's the younger ones are where it's shrinking, that takes nutrition right now, but like Melissa said, it's moving them through the schools as those smaller grades move through our school system, but HMK gets it now, because they're, the first spot, but.
But it sounds like to me that for years, we've been by guess and by golly, and I feel really comfortable that we now have staff that's working through these issues and what we want to do is make sure that we have a continuum. We don't
Yeah.
fall into that, oh boy, we spin it all. We know, we could forecast. You could tell us exactly where we're at and what we have to do. I feel comfortable with that. I'm glad I came on when I did.
I know.
Because it seems like a good time.
Right.
2020 was a little messy.
I can't say for sure that all of the things that we're doing is going to bring homeschoolers and other schoolers back in. But we will do a publicity push and, during the summer of, return to public, go public. And as our reputation grows, that we're turning, you should have seen our Sterling Scholars.
Mhm.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's the kind of kids we do have, and that needs to be the norm of just like, yeah, we got Sterling Scholars, don't you? And just as we get these systems in place and instruction and scores and all of that, then we, maybe we're able to increase some of our enrollment too.
Mhm. It's
We
a
become
time-
the choice, that's been my goal is if you want to go to school in Utah, you go to Moab.
The charter school, I wonder what's going on with the charter school.
Nothing against them, but I'd love to drain them.
Yeah.
Yeah.
All right, I'm gonna move this, move next to the executive session. Well, I'm gonna,
Could Matt?
because Matt needs to leave, and so I wanna do that.
Yeah.
Okay.
So, we can talk about fence planning without these guys.
That's true.
Thank you. Thank you very much.
But I'll accept a motion to, recess for 5 minutes.
Yeah.
I propose a motion to recess. Let's do it.
Is there a second?
Second.
Okay, Jenna makes a motion, Laura Lee seconds. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Okay, we'll recess for 5 minutes.
Yours was 6 hours long. Yeah.
5.5.
It's.
You got fast.
Yeah, it says here 4.5.
Oh, it's not 4.5.
It's not?
Wow.
Well, it will be for me.
Yeah,
You gotta
5,
get over.
maybe
through
5.
this.
Did you get that? Recess at 11:05. 11:05. Just so you know that my parents follow me on 360 and they called me upset Coaches, like, just in the
Yeah.
suburb, I'm like,
Politics.
yeah, you always.
Yeah, we-
Like
My wife tracks Sarah like
Then
a
that might
stalker.
be like-
Yeah.
And Sarah doesn't mind, which is awesome, but it's like, she's driving 80 miles an hour. I said, yeah, she drives like I drive.
3 days.
Yeah.
I drive, not true.
Well, so have I,
Well, oh, yeah.
Well,
okay,
yeah.
But,
but not that, I don't.
But they're working.
Are you headed to St. George right after this?
Yeah, I need to be out of here by 11:30, so,
Okay,
Okay, so you wanna meet for dinner tonight? We'll hook up.
yeah, my meeting in Cedar City goes well. Yeah,
Get out of
I'll text you.
You text me.
This
okay,
is a big commitment, because I don't text, you know.
I understand that. That's why I was
You
impressed.
don't?
No,
You don't
does
look like
not.
a texter, Dexter.
all right, we'll come out of, recess at 11:12. We need to go into executive to talk about negotiations. So I'll accept a motion to go into executive for negotiations.
I'll make a motion to go into executive session to discuss negotiations.
Second, there a second?
I second.
Kathy Williams makes a motion, Laura Lee, Green. Seconds to go into executive session to talk about negotiations. Roll call vote.
Yes, I'm here, Laura Lee Green.
Yes, Jennifer Gray.
Melissa Bird, yes.
Kathy Williams, yes.
David said yes.
Okay, well, 5-0 is the vote. We'll go into executive session at 11:13 and turn off the recorder, but then we will turn it right back.
I have a list of questions, look.
I'm shaking hands.
All
I
right.
don't know if I'm coming back.
Safe drives. Yes.
You are coming.
It's
back.
gonna fall in the
We love you, Matt.
Don't
Do
forget.
not let,
All
all right.
I think.
He did it first.
I want bonds right here all the time. There were roads. Yes. Man, in
We're back in open session at 11:41.
fact, I felt really special, but now I see.
It is Wednesday, April 9th, 2025, 11:41. We are at the board meeting. You can turn Zoom back on if you want to. Okay.
Okay.
So the one of the things left would be advanced planning.
Do you need me for any of that?
I don't, well,
Board retreat.
board retreat. So
Okay.
yeah,
Does board retreat mean instead of a work session or in addition to?
yeah, good question.
It's.
Well, if you want to
a
retreat,
long work session.
A long one.
It's a
Like
long,
we had,
You block a day.
I think we ought to retreat. Come to my cabin. We'll do this.
Yeah, like-
Then we'll have drinks and I have plenty of
Right.
beds.
Yeah.
Boy, we get a lot done.
Now, but it is still something that is, has to be, you have to notify the public that you're having a retreat, so.
Yeah,
But I guess.
they're welcome to come all the way up to the cabin up in the little house.
they did make a law, about it a couple of years ago, and I can't remember.
They being the state of Utah.
Yeah, I can't remember, like you can't have it,
Long
if you
vacations.
have it in your county, like it had to be like, there's some rules, but I don't remember.
Your
those
cabin
rules.
in the county?
It's just on the line, but no, it's in the same.
One is.
Yeah, you do.
Yeah.
So do I. Mine's just.
So are you neighbors?
The county line's kind of deep.
We're neighbors, yeah. we have a cabin somewhere.
It's sad.
We could have them.
That sounds good.
Well,
But some of our.
They're
kids-
very,
But some of our
theirs are
kids. live in
houses,
San-
mine's
they do.
yeah,
Yeah.
rustic.
But
A
look
little
again,
bit.
Yeah,
It's
so
really
we can call
I
it.
just want to have a party. Sorry.
That's the best kind of retreat.
Yeah, well, I think you'd get more done.
I agree
after
with
the
you 100%.
retreat Than,
Agreed.
truthfully.
I'm very organized.
Okay,
Here,
so
yeah, we'll
do you guys have I mean, we can split up, so the thing with the HMK lunch is we don't have to be together, we could split up and you just take a time, or we could do it. So there is no school on the 21st.
There is it. It's the day after Easter, right?
Yep.
That would be money.
So
You should.
we could do it like. We could meet for lunch on the day of work, the board meeting. I don't know,
Which.
23rd.
23rd. About like noon and just have, it's like, it's,
When is lunch? Isn't it?
well,
earlier?
it's from 10:30
That's right.
to 1 or something, yeah, so we could
Fine.
eat with the kindergartners, or we could eat with the sixth graders, it's,
So do you have a preference?
we
We
can
can
look,
ask them, right, what they prefer, or it doesn't matter to them?
No.
I don't think they
Okay.
care.
they don't, I mean, we could look at the menu.
Oh, be good.
I can pull it up.
It's on Facebook, it's on my Facebook page.
On the website.
Aw.
What about high school? And like, how do you find out lunch in the shed?
The menus are posted on the website.
On the website at the high school too? Okay.
Wednesday, chicken sandwich, potato wedges, peas and carrots.
Okay.
I
I
know.
wanna talk about the board retreat so I could hit the road.
So let's just plan on that day and then I'll double check
Okay.
with Sarah.
Okay, so the 23rd.
23rd, lunch,
I'm just gonna put anything out of this.
okay. And then board retreat, so that would be, vision, mission, we could talk about, again,
The land
priorities,
thing, the
budget,
operating
like,
thing, Yeah.
Okay.
hopefully, we could also facilities, we could bring in that, cause I'm gonna keep pushing Matt
Yeah,
about,
we will.
so,
Me too.
did you see my email?
Yes, I did.
Okay.
I'm very much in.
Okay.
So if I could just throw this out, on June 11th, I have my Super CAD meeting. And we're going to be working on our wildly important goals from 4DX. So at that time, I should have rough drafts of wildly important goals for the for the district, the campuses, and each of the departments. And I would love to be able to share that with y'all, because my vision is that this goes up as scoreboards. And then at each board meeting, you get a written report on how each department and school is doing on their WIGs. So that would be something that would be interesting to share at the board retreat. We don't have to, I'm just saying that would
Well,
be interesting.
If we're going into June, I'm gone from the 9th through the 20th,
Okay.
the 2 midweeks of June.
And I'm gonna be gone on the 11th for the Utah Prevention Coalition.
And I'm better at the last week, the 23rd through the 27th. We're past all of the things that are gonna go on.
Why is the board meeting on the 25th?
Because Pat wanted to change it. Pat Wilson wanted to change
Is
it.
the
which
11th
good
the
for
work
me.
session?
11th would be the work session.
Is
Oh,
that
we
what
just
that
moved it a
means?
week.
I think Pat's gone. He can only be here the 25th, so he wanted to change it. And it may be something to do with numbers as well.
I think
but-
it has to do with,
It's not that Pat
Budget.
will be here, it's that.
The numbers will be-
budget-
Numbers, right.
The
It
budgets
wouldn't
will be due, and so
That's what I'm.
that's when he'll have the final numbers.
that's the night we
Okay.
have to approve the budget.
He said we probably won't
June
have the
22nd.
numbers until the 18th, which is when the board meeting would have been.
Yeah.
So he needs that time to get
Yeah.
everything plugged in, so
Okay.
June 25th.
And it's due by the end of June.
So I think 27th
Yeah,
is a Friday, and we can
Go
decide
for
what
it.
we're gonna go do and be what.
Wait, what'd you say?
27th is Friday. Unless somebody has some big thing.
If it's gonna be a
Wait.
marathon, why not on a
Hold on,
Friday?
let me, look, I have, that's
Okay
like
with that.
softball.
Wherever it is, but
Does anybody remember from, there was like at the workshop in Salt Lake? There was like June, like, don't we have to give it to the commission at some point, like, before?
June,
The
so
county?
June 8th is a thing up north in Salt Lake.
Yeah, no, just like in January, there was like that little like quiz on dates. Like there was something before the end of June, like, doesn't the county have to look at it or?
The county gives us their numbers. And that's
Okay.
where always, we're waiting for numbers from the county
Okay,
to.
for property tax.
For property
Okay.
tax, so that's
Okay.
usually what the last numbers are coming in, so
Okay.
they might have, you might be thinking, I don't know.
Yeah, okay, I
That
don't-
there was
yeah,
a
okay.
date that they have to meet
Yeah, yeah.
to give us,
Okay.
and then,
Got it,
so.
yeah,
so then,
got it, then.
I think-
you're right, I think I remember that, so
Yeah.
they were like, and it's always overlapping,
Yeah.
like, they don't give us those numbers, but we have to do it.
I think we need to get somewhere Mike's gonna go. So what do we, if the 27th, you said you had softball,
No, let me look,
I just.
I'm
like-
good, I'm good that
I
day.
just like not to have to do something if it's gonna be a marathon. I just
Yeah.
rest and.
I like the
I
27th.
can do the 27th.
Yay,
Retreat.
Okay,
Right.
you're excused.
thank you, sir.
Do you
Y'all have
want
an
me
awesome
there
weekend.
for that to take minutes during it, or
Yes. Are you,
like do minutes like I'll be here regardless, I just wanna make sure that I don't put anything on my schedule.
I would, yeah,
Okay,
just in case,
okay.
but not necessary. Yes, but not.
Do minutes have to be taken? If minutes have to be taken, I'd rather sit in here.
I-
Live
Then
and listen to it
later.
later.
Yeah,
Be a good idea.
Okay,
minutes will have to be taken,
okay, then I will be here.
but your detailed minutes are not
But
probably
I'm gonna push for
necessary.
not being.
Well, your secretary could also
In
take
this
the
room.
minutes, cause I can find out from Joan what the requirements are, but a retreat usually is a lot less structured and free form.
And minutes, but yeah, I mean, you could just say discuss, I mean, all you have to put is discussion,
Yeah,
blah, 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 discussion. Like you wouldn't necessarily have to go into your,
yeah. So depending, I would say that we can cover the minutes, cause if it's going to be a long day and with
Yeah,
libations and all other kinds of things.
I'm pushing.
I like that idea.
I have fun. Okay,
All right, guys, y'all have an awesome
Okay,
weekend. And good
so-
spring break. I won't see you until after, so if y'all have any questions, reach out to me.
drive carefully.
Have a,
so June board meeting, you guys switch that to the 25th.
so that's.
So we'll
going
have
from 18th.
25th. And then we'll have the 27th.
And then, so which one are we getting rid of? The one that's on?
We're not getting rid of
Oh, so it's
any,
just the 11th and the 25th?
because, that June one, he'll,
Yeah, the 18th is what we're getting. rid of.
the work session, usually that's the draft of the budget that we'll be approving.
Or will that be on the 11th or the 18th?
That's what I'm saying. We're getting rid of the 18th, right? Yeah. there's
Yeah.
no meeting. That's what I,
Okay.
okay, that's what I wanted to know, okay.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Gotcha.
Yeah, I was assuming, we're moving the 18th
Moving
to the
it.
25th.
Thank you, not get rid of it.
Can, quick question,
That
what,
event's funny.
what's July?
Oh, what does July look like?
I mean, and if I'm,
July is usually one meeting.
and if I'm
One,
gone with
two,
no,
three.
wait, that's okay,
That's fine.
okay.
It happens.
I'm gonna probably have a little bit of a problem in August, but I will do my best to Zoom. I'll be in Italy for a little.
So
while.
the only issue would be, you know, if we know that three of us are gonna be gone, then we could
Okay.
probably think, or if it's a big meeting, I would rather just reschedule it, but
Okay.
not if it's just a regular meeting that we're not. But July, usually we do get rid of the work session, because we won't have, principals are off, like
Yeah.
there's no staff,
Okay,
to even ask questions or,
I'll go ahead and add the July meetings onto advanced planning for
okay,
April.
that would be great.
Just so that you guys can
See.
discuss those.
And then, there is. We talked about JLC, was it JLC? That's
Yeah.
coming up, that's in
Yeah.
June. Will you add that to the advanced planning? That's not already on
I
there.
think it's
it's the sixth,
It's
Like,
the sixth
and
and
the
seventh, the seventh, yeah, the seventh is the actual meeting and the sixth is a dinner. and-
So, as a board,
This is in April?
no,
it's in
June.
and I'm
Oh,
going, are
June.
you going?
Oh,
I'd like to
okay.
go.
yeah.
Okay, did you get a motel room?
No, but I don't usually need one.
Isn't it in Sandy though?
It is insane, yeah.
Will you, not really dire to get, but will you get Jenna, when you get back? You put that on your to-do list to get Jenna a motel room. You don't want one? Okay, figure out where, it's at the US, it's at the,
It's in Sandy. It's like, what school district is that in Sandy?
How far is Sandy from?
It's
Well,
part
it's
of
3.5.
South Salt Lake. It's
Oh,
like
it is
90
quite
south. It's like 90
Oh,
south.
That's when you come
Just
up.
one of the first.
Yeah.
Above
Yeah.
Provo,
Oh, yeah.
just above
Yeah.
Provo a little bit.
Oh, for the, point of the mountain.
Past the point of the mountain, yeah.
Yeah, yeah,
Just as you come into the valley.
yeah, I mean, just. like,
Different
nice.
valley,
And I
So
remember
the
going.
sixth and the seventh or just?
just
This
the
is the night of the
6th,
sixth.
night of the 6th, because they're usually out by noon.
I remember.
And then does anybody else want to go to it?
No, I've got you.
I was sure Draper had.
Dave, do you want to go to it?
I probably do, but
Okay.
yeah.
Okay, so
So, yeah,
What is it we're going to?
Well.
Sign me up.
Actually-
I like going to things.
It's actually, it's interesting. They talk about the JLC is the legislative committee, joint legislative committee.
Uh-huh.
So you get two voting members, you meet, or an alternate.
we get one from the board and one from from
You're from the region,
region.
you're the
Oh, that's-
regional.
okay,
You're the
right,
region
right, right,
voter.
right. So anyway, and then they present their priorities going to the next
Mhm,
legislative
mhm.
session. So the people at top of USDA have their priorities. We want this % increase in this, we want funding for this, blah, blah, blah. And then it's just a big discussion and you vote on it as a big group thing.
So you're setting the legislative priorities,
Legislative priorities for
And
the
you-
coming year.
and sometimes they have legislators the night before.
The night before will be a dinner and they'll have somebody talking. It'd be great if they could get. a
So there's some
legislator.
good network. I mean. you
It's
know,
great, and it's a smaller group,
Yeah.
so it's usually just one person or two people from the district, a superintendent, maybe. They're probably gonna introduce a new state superintendent, I would assume pretty
Oh.
soon, because Sid Dixon
Yeah.
is retiring, so that's a big deal.
Just a good
Um,
way to see the process. how the
Yeah.
process works.
Yeah. So yes,
I'm getting old. I gotta learn as much as I can.
maybe, yes, no.
But Kathy, you don't want a hotel
Oh.
room? Okay.
And that's not, there's tons of motel rooms in Sandy,
Sure,
so,
yeah.
not crucial to. Okay, any other, future planning? Things? We have next week's spring break, remember, so don't come to our board meeting. And,
No, take that off.
Doors will be closed. Doors will be locked.
well, no, they'll be here, they should be.
Oh, they'll be here.
You're 12
Certain
you're
days,
12
there's.
months.
I won't be here.
She, yeah,
You
you
got
got
a 12-month employees.
yeah, that's another thing we need to do, put on the agenda, is that work schedule.
Work schedule for,
For staff.
like, for this year or next year?
Next year. Oh, thank you. Yes. but I'll just do it. I'm just gonna do it. And,
You're gonna make a work schedule for them?
well, it's just the holiday schedule. I'm not gonna make that crazy thing. I'm just gonna do the holiday schedule and then that dictates
For the 12-month employees.
for the 12 month.
Do you want that May work session? Or do
Yeah.
you want that, okay?
I'll present it at May work session. Any other things that you guys want on the agenda? I mean, moving forward.
When do we get like the policies from the state, like?
Beginning of the year.
School year,
So that's
beginning of the school year.
from the legislature, said, oh, that's a long time.
Yeah, well, they gotta create them now. Just because
Yeah.
like, this was a bill, and then it goes to USBE,
Oh,
and then the USBE creates it.
Then they get it to us and they go back to the legislature and change it before. we
Yeah,
can
right,
implement it. So
right.
it's
Yeah.
a good system we have.
Okay.
It's called Chase the Rabbit.
Yeah, so they send us a little thumb drive that has all of the current policy, the red line policy, and the improved policy, and then I put everything into the chart that you guys see, all nice and neat,
Okay,
and
yeah.
don't have to search through things.
All right, I'll accept a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Is there a second?
Second.
Dave Beershire makes a motion, Kathy Williams seconds. We are adjourned at 11:57.
Thank you, guys. I think it was.
Thank you.
Yeah, very
Yeah.
productive.
I'm lost looking at all these.
I mean, I just love that Matt's so
I know.
sincere.